Good morning. How's everybody? My name is Austin Jordan. I'm Vice President of the Barrier Island Station Interval Ownership Association, and I hereby call the 2023 annual meeting of said association to order. There being greater than 10% of the association present either in person or by proxy, the existence of a quorum is noted. And now, if I may, a moment. May I ask any of my brother or sister veterans in the audience to stand? If I may, would you please, just one more moment, please, if I may, allow this old submariner to render one hand salute for your great service to this great nation. And now the next on the agenda is the approval of the 2022 annual meeting minutes. You should have that in your packet. Take a moment, if you would please, and review those minutes. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes? There being none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the 2022 annual meeting of the Barrier Island Station Interval Ownership Association.
I so move.
And your name, sir?
Joseph Evans.
Joseph Evans. There's a motion made to accept the minutes. May I have a second?
Second.
Your name, sir?
William Bankhart.
Thank you, sir. A motion's been made and seconded to approve the 2022 annual meeting minutes of the Barrier Island Station Interval Ownership Association. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries. The annual meeting minutes for the 2022 annual meeting of the Barrier Island Station Interval Ownership Association are adopted. And now, if I may, Denise Truesdale, President of the Association.
Good morning, everyone. It's really great to see you today. Looking forward to a good meeting, and I want to thank you for taking the time to come out today. Why don't we get started with going over the next step of the logistics here? So you should all have your meeting materials and your proxy cards. Just a reminder, as we do every year, we have an FAQ. There were people that submitted questions, so you should have a list of the questions that were submitted with the answers. And there'll be time at the end of the meeting, as usual. You can go up to the mic and ask any questions that you have of us, and we'll try to address them. The meeting materials will also be held out on the portal and posted on our website, barrierislandstationresorts.com. This year, we also have Baldwin Productions. Baldwin Productions is in the back of the room, and they're actually live streaming the meeting for us today. So for those of you that weren't able to attend, good morning to you, and you'll be online now looking over the meeting. The meeting is also going to be recorded. I just want to remind you that the connection here is really what makes the streaming possible. So if anything goes down or we have a problem with the connection, the meeting is being recorded, and people will be able to go in and look at the meeting that way after the session. So we've got you covered. We plan on the meeting being adjourned at 12 o'clock. And from 12 to 2, we'll have what we call an open house right here in this room, where you'll be able to meet with us, ask us any questions, and also network with your fellow owners. Excuse me. Next slide. And we talked about that again. We'll have raffles, some surprises, so it'll be worth your while to stay for the after meeting. And looking at the agenda, we're going to start out here following my introduction and welcome. There'll be the treasurer's report by Carmen Giovanni. Justin Smith, the area vice president of operations, is going to introduce the VRI team to you. Walter Hancock, our general manager, is going to go over the state of the resort and give an operations report, what was done this year and what's planned for the future. Austin Jordan will come up and give a review of the proposed revised bylaws and why it's important that we upgrade the bylaws at this time. Then Walter's going to give us an update on the interior project that we have going on, as well as the recreation center upgrade. We'll then go into the election of the directors, and then we'll finish up with the Q&A, and then we'll go have the adjournment of the meeting, and then go into the networking session. Next slide. So every year I look forward to coming back and meeting with everyone. This is a new time for us to discuss what we actually accomplished and did in 2023. As usual, it's a busy year for us, and I always like to remind folks of what we've done, because when I used to sit in my unit and didn't like the way things were going, and I'd say, what in the world are those people on the board doing? And that's when I decided that I actually wanted to get into the board and join the board to see how we might be able to impact change at the resort. And so I am really very honored and pleased that we have such a great group of people that are on this board. This is not a board by name only. This is a really hard-working board, and we work tirelessly trying to do the best that we can to make the resort a better place. And one of the things we're challenged with is that we're having to do a lot with a little. So I hope you can appreciate and understand that, and I'd like to take a moment to introduce the group to you. So I'll start off with our treasurer, Carmen DiGiovanni. He's the treasurer. We're very fortunate to have Carmen on the team. He has a wealth of information, and he helps us tirelessly to manage the budget and do whatever we can to raise money to keep the resort afloat. And later on, he'll be talking to you about some of the initiatives and some of the things that we're doing to make that happen. Austin Jordan, second in command, is our vice president. If we need anything that has to do with contracting, he knows the bylaws inside and out, as well as the declarations, and he's the go-to person, all things contracts, and we all work as a team to work together to make intelligent decisions. And then Rich Finelli, he came at a perfect time, because as we're now starting to do the recreation center stuff, without his architectural expertise, I don't know how we would have gotten through all of this. And I hope you find that the rec center, which is soon to come, is going to be an outstanding product. Next of all, I would like to mention Chuck Lataki. Chuck had some personal commitments today that were prior to him joining the board, so he wasn't able to make it. But he's a great addition to the team, and he's working with Austin on the bylaws initiative that we have, and he's willing to do whatever he can to keep things going. So that's the board that we have today. And of course, we wouldn't have Barrier Island Station without you guys, the owners. It's the owners with us together, because we're all owners that make this place work. So I have to say thank you to all of you for your support and your patience to make Barrier Island a better place. I also have to give a big shout out to Debbie Olive, because without Debbie, you guys would not have this Facebook. Debbie manages the owner's Facebook page, and she gets a badge of honor for doing that. So Debbie, I appreciate it. Let's give Debbie a round of applause. And then, of course, we wouldn't have a team if we didn't have our property management team. So here he is, the greatest GM on the planet. We've got Walter Hancock here. Walter knows how to stretch a penny, let me tell you, because we have a lot of stuff. We have a lot of things we need to get done, and we're always looking at creative ways. This man even uses stamps from Kellogg's to help us get chairs. So that just shows you how much he's able to use and stretch a dollar. So we appreciate that. And we've got our Vice President of Operations from VRI, Justin. Justin Smith is here today, so let's give them a hand. And of course, I'd like to thank the staff that's outside that's managing all of this. We have a limited staff, but somehow we're able to manage to have the staff come in, work on the annual meeting, and run everything back in the office. So thanks to everyone for making this a very special place. Okay. So one of the things I like to remind you of all the time is this is our resort. The resort belongs to us, and we have to pat ourselves on the back because we are this property. We don't have a Marriott, we don't have a Hilton. Anything that we do, anything around here is funded by us, the owners, and we're all owners just like you. And as I talk to people in the room, we're all owners who've owned for 30-plus years, and so you know what that means. Some of us are now retired, some of us are on fixed incomes. Things don't move the way that they used to. I mean, that's just the nature of how it is. I'm talking to people and they say, I want to be here, but I can't go up the stairs, or I can't step in the shower, I can't. You know, so we try to work with everyone, but keep in mind that as a mature, I won't say aging, I'll say as a maturing community, we have to learn to adapt and be flexible. And also as a maturing community, unfortunately, we lose people along the way. So when our treasurer is talking to you today, I want you to keep in mind that we have to look at ways to continue to sustain the resort, and at the same time, we're somewhat reimagining ourselves. We have less people today than when we had it started, and we have people whose children don't want to be at the resort anymore. So what you find is as we have fewer people, those of us that are left have to pull the weight of everybody. So we have to look at ways of reimagining and finding ways to make money. And I just want you to start as we go through this to keep this in mind, because there's only a few ways we can gather money. I'm going to say the dreaded word assessment, which I know you don't want to do. So we try everything we can to avoid that. But keep in mind that low maintenance fees equals not very much reserves. And the way for us to pay for stuff has to be through money that we have. So if we don't have the money, we have to look at ways of doing it. So that really is something for us to think about today as to how we do all of this. So our goal is to always try to minimize the impact to you, the impact to us as owners with whatever we have to do and pay. So that's one of the goals that we have. We're constantly looking at ways in which we can reinvent ourselves, in which we can generate additional revenue to keep the resort afloat. The goal has always been to build a world-class resort, and some of the things that we've been doing is getting us in that direction with the upgrade projects that we have with the exteriors and the amenities that would want to make people come to the property. Next screen. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to go through some of the accomplishments or the things that we focused on this year. What did we do in the area of technology upgrades? Where do we sit with the interior project, the rec center project, the bylaws revision? And then we have a plan. When we got on board here, we realized that there wasn't an HVAC maintenance program in place. And one of the things that we started doing a few years ago was funding and putting a plan in place to replace all of the HVACs and get to a point where it would be easy for us to handle. I don't know if you remember, but the reason I joined the board was simply because of an HVAC failure. It was during the years when the HVACs were not working and these air conditioning units were showing up on all the windows, and I just couldn't stand it. And that is when I got on the board. And so we have a process now to replace up to 14 of these a year until we can get this all corrected. But we have a maintenance plan for that that's in place. And as we talked about here, our number one goal, just like you have, is nothing works without money. So we're constantly looking at ways to generate money, and we're constantly looking at ways to do that without having to get it all from the owner base. So next slide. So again, we've got these key projects underway. I'm going to go, if you go to the next slide, I can talk to you about, the initiatives here. One of the things, and I don't see is the person here, the pickleball person? Was that?
Margie.
Okay. Well, I know you're the pickleball lady, but there was another gentleman that was here last year that wanted pickleball, and it's here. We try to do things as best as we can. So we do have the pickleball out here this year. And I know Marty's been making good use, and her husband, good use of the pickleball courts. I did want to say that. Amenities. We need to have services in the age of technology so that you can use your phone, you can use your tablet, you can use whatever, be anywhere, any place, and be able to get good Wi-Fi, get good communications, and be able to do streaming. And we've got all of that at the resort. We have a state-of-art fiber network, and that additional investment has allowed us to move from the regular telephone service to a voice-over IP service. We've now got Spectrum Enterprise television services installed, and that has over 200-plus premium channels. We've got music on there. And one of the things, I don't know if you folks have noticed it, but one of the key advantages to this service now is if you have the app up on your phone, you can take that TV program or whatever you're watching and you can stream it. You can be wherever on the property and you can stream it. If you remember, I'm the woman that doesn't have the TV in the bedroom, so I take my phone now or my tablet and I can stream in the room using the app. So it's very simple to do. So you can have TV throughout. So we have that. We're streaming on demand. We've got the other thing that we're bringing onto the property now is the EV charging stations. So we're going to now have 4 charging stations as a part of the recreation center project that we're using. Okay? And the last thing that we're working on technology-wise is that we're going to have a Barrier Island Station television station, so that when owners or guests come in, they can see what's happening on at the resort through our own channel. Okay? So we are basically developing a world-class vacation experience. The next thing that we're big on is communications. I don't know how many of you have been going out to the portal, but we try to keep it updated. Specifically, I'll give you the example of the interior upgrades and the recreation center updates, where we're putting photos out and we're giving you updates as to what's being installed in the units and the progression of the recreation center. If you want to communicate with us further, besides the portal, we've got the VRI account for all of your billing and accounting information. That's on the VRI portal. We do a monthly owner's update in addition to updating the website. We've got a newsletter that we put out once a year, and you can see the information here. So we try our best to keep everyone engaged, informed, and aware of what's going on at the resort. Many of you probably know Joe Takis. Joe is our broker agent, and he helps us with all of our sales, our rentals. If you want to even sell your property or buy another week, he's here. And he's usually faithfully here. This year, he had an opportunity to take a trip over to Europe, so unfortunately, he's not here. But he has given us, as he typically does, a free vacation as part of the raffle. So I'd like to thank Joe for his participation, and if you're ever in need of real estate services, Joe's the person. So that's his information there. And not to dwell on this too much, but I do want you to keep in mind, this little picture on the top says it all for us. We are stretching every dollar, trying to do what we can to minimize the impact of owners and still have a quality resort. Next screen. Okay, so Without further ado, I'm now going to introduce the man of the hour who's going to talk to you all about the finances and plans that we have. It's my treasurer. I call him the money man, Carmen D. Giovanni.
Thank you, Denise. If I were a real money man, I'd be giving it out instead of asking for it. But, yeah. Such is my burden here. So, anyway, we're going to go through, for those of you who have either been here before or who have seen the presentation online, some of these charts will look familiar. They're simply updated, but we do have some additional and new information to put out also. So first slide is a recap of 2023 and what we're looking to do in 2024 in my area. We foreclosed on 47 prime weeks, and we started foreclosure actions on another 60. Word about foreclosures. Foreclosures in North Carolina are long and expensive, given the fact that we're foreclosing on an interval. So we only go after prime weeks. We're not going to foreclose on a winter week if someone goes delinquent, because there's nothing we can do with it. It's not as if we could squeeze more maintenance fees out of a unit that we can't sell or rent. So we focus on weeks in May through September. And if people go delinquent in that area, we follow the policy exactly as to what remedies we have and what we allow folks to be able to make themselves whole with us. But once that expires, we're going to go after those weeks because they're rentable and it's in some cases saleable. So we brought in 47 weeks. We also rent everything we possibly can, or at least it's in the rental pool. So weeks that the association owns, and we own right now, I think it's around 623 weeks. We actually own more than 10% of the intervals in this association. And so we put those in the rental pool, and we generated through September $162,000, and that's the equivalent of 173 paying owners, adding to our revenue stream. We also took back 39 deed backs through our deed back program, which offsets potential delinquencies, and that resulted in $116,000 of incremental revenue. These are two sources of revenue over and above maintenance fee income. Typical, the objectives here, we always look for financial controls, continue the aggressive foreclosure actions, rentals, what have you. But the last bullet, and I'm going to talk more about that in a later slide, is looking for ways to generate income. We have a plumbing problem, for those of you who may not know this. 5 of our 7 buildings have Quest plumbing. Some of you may have had this in your homes or be familiar with this. These are failing, and we have a non-negotiable issue here, unfortunately, because we've lost several units that had to be taken out of service, undergo extensive rehabilitation to replace the plumbing and repair all the damage that the leaks caused. And the problem is our insurance company, who has threatened to cancel our coverage if we don't fix this, because they're getting tired of writing big checks to us to underwrite the repair work. So the repair work is not costing us directly at this point in time, but it will if we don't fix this. So 5 of the 7 buildings have to be replumbed, and that number is going to be about $865,000 per our best estimate. And I'll talk a little bit more of that as we get into it. So the next chart here is one that you've seen time and again, and this is a track over, in this case, 29 years of our maintenance fees versus the national average. And the national average is one that I compute based on industry data, but it's a blend of 2- and 3-bedroom maintenance fees. We have a blend of 2- and 3-bedroom units here, so I take the raw data and I factor it based on the percentage of 2- and 3-bedroom units that we have and come up with this modified or assumed maintenance fee that you see here of $1,361 versus our $995. And the space between those lines over 29 years is equal to $23 million. And the message I convey every year, had we simply tracked the national average, then we would have a lot of money in the bank. There would never have been a special assessment. Your sofas would have been replaced every 5 years, just as you were told when you bought here. That's the the cost that it takes to fulfill the promises that were made. And so, but we're getting this by gradually raising maintenance fees, and we've had to have, as you know, 3 special assessments over the last, well, since 2014, if I remember correctly, the last 10 years, we've had 3 different assessments. And this is the reason for that. Next slide. We have some data trends here coming up. On this one, I track and I must admit, when I first did this, it surprised me a bit, but the 2 lines here show our revenue and our expenses, our maintenance fee collections and our operating expenses. And the maintenance fee collections, that line is very flat, as you can see. There's a little bit of variability, but if you were to put a line through that, that would be just about a zero slope line. And frankly, for maintenance, for the operating expenses, except for the vagaries, this right here, this dip was COVID, when our expenses went way down because we were shut down. So we didn't spend a lot of money, but the money recovered in subsequent years. But what you see there, if you were to graph that, that's pretty much a straight line also. So the question as an owner I would ask is, if my revenue is flat and my expenses are flat, why are my maintenance fees continue to go up every year? And that is shown on the next slide. And what you see here is not good information, not good news, if you will. And what you see, the light green line that starts at the top there, is our performing owners, the number of owners who are paying the bills, if you will. The other line represents maintenance fees. So what we have here are fewer owners paying the bills, in so many words. That's exactly where we are here. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in later slides, but probably later years too, unfortunately. But this trend, if this line continues to drop, then this line has to continue to grow, to just to pay the bills, just to pay the bills. So that is the unfortunate trap that we find ourselves right now. And when I say ourselves, it's not just us. This is a trend in legacy timeshare resorts that don't have a big pocketbook behind them, or that are constructed in different ways, as opposed to deeded ownership. Maybe they have floating weeks, or it's basically a vacation club where they can do a lot more with their property than we can. Next slide, please. So this is where we are this year. This is always of interest to people. How did we do? Where did the money go? What have you? And one more, Justin. So high-level presentation here of our revenues and our expenses. And if you look at the fine print right here on this line here, you'll see that our budget was for 58% of our owners to be paying the bills, okay? It looks like our best guess right now is we're going to miss that by 0.9 of a percentage point. We think we're going to close December at about 57.1, and that's going to cost us $49,000 of revenue that we're not going to get from those 0.9 percentage point of owners not paying the bill. Coming down, other revenue though, we're up. $90,188, we expect to have a favorable variance there. That's a mix. That's every other dollar that we bring in other than the direct maintenance fee income. So that's rentals, rental income, that's deed back revenue, that's revenue from payments that we recovered from delinquent owners. Any other source of revenue falls into that line. We budget that. The budget is a guess on that because we never really quite know how many people will pay back bills. We don't know how many units will rent. But in this case, it looks like we're going to have a favorable variance. If I come down to operating expenses, we have a favorable variance there. We're going to go in another slide and explain why we have a favorable variance there and why that is not good. We'll show that on the next slide. But we expect, at this moment, we expect to end the year with a surplus of a little over $100,000, which is a surplus in this case is always good. So next slide. This is a more detailed breakdown of the expenses, and because this always has the interest of a lot of our folks. A lot of back and forth. The one issue, the one variance on here that we don't want to see is a large favorable variance in salaries and wages, the one right in the middle. Okay. When we budget salaries and wages, we set our staffing plan for the year. We did this in September. We know who is supposed to be here. We know what they are supposed to make in the way of salaries, what their tax burden is. All of that stuff is known, frankly, to the dollar. So when we see a favorable variance here, that tells us that we did not spend that money. And why didn't we spend it? We didn't cut anybody's paycheck. We didn't reduce benefits. We lost people. We were understaffed in various areas during the year. So that's not a variance you want to see, because that means that services are potentially negatively impacted when that maintenance person or that front desk person is not here to address a problem in the unit or to answer the phone when you call. The others are, in financial terms, I call it noise. Budgeting is not precise. We expect variances. We don't want to see all negatives or all positives, but they tend to offset. So at the bottom line, we have an expected favorable variance of $65,000 that is very close right there to the $63,000 worth of a labor variance. The rest is essentially noise in the system. Next slide. On this one, we're going to show what's happening in 2024, what we think will happen, versus how we think 2023 will close. So we do expect to pick up a variance there in revenue of $66,000. But I want you to also look at this right here. We're expecting only 55% of our owners to pay the bill in 2024. And the reason we see a positive variance here, favorable variance, is because of the increase in your maintenance fees. That will offset that. Now, I also want you to remember, if you would please, that 55% number. We're going to talk about that in a couple slides going forward here. But what that's saying is that a little more than half of our owners are paying the bill. Another way to think about that is those half owners who are paying the bill, the half of our population, are in a way paying twice as much as they would otherwise have to. Okay, that's the simple math here. You're paying for everybody who's not paying. That's where it's going. And if they all were paying the bill, then the value of those 45 to 50% would be money in the bank. That would be money that we would be spending on sofas and bedroom chests and new kitchens and new baths. Okay, that's the money we don't have. And that is, unfortunately, the financial reality that we are operating under at this point in time. Small variance in other revenue. Again, these are the dynamics of these accounts. We really don't know exactly what we're going to get. We had a good rental year this year. We may not have as good a rental year next year. So we do, when all the numbers are scaled out here, we do expect a small negative variance there. Net operating expenses, we expect to go up over what we are. The biggest portion of that unfavorable $133,000 variance is labor. Again, we're budgeting 2024 as if every employee will be here from January 1st to December 31st. And so that's going to offset, if you will, the favorable variance that you just saw on the prior slide. Next slide. This will show you the comparison in operating expenses between the 2024 budget and where we think 2023 is going to come in. And the two largest variances, salaries and wages and admin in general. Salaries and wages, again, just what I said, we're expecting everybody to be here for the full year. That probably won't happen, so that variance at the end of the day will probably not be that, but that's how we do budget for it. Admin and general reflects some general cost increases, but also a few extra dollars that we're throwing into the reserve account. That flows through this line for budgeting purposes. So, and what goes into the reserve account, Denise mentioned about our HVAC, replacement program. So we're looking to replace 17 units in 2024, and there'll be other capital items. If we buy new dishwashers, new stoves, what have you, those are all capital expenditures, necessary capital expenditures. But again, at the end of the day, we're looking at roughly 3.6% increase in operating expenses in 2024 versus where we think we're going to end 2023. Next slide. This is just a colorful graph that kind of portrays to the eyes what I just explained to the ears. And so you have the operating expense budget. Where does it go? What are the major components? And you can see on the pie chart here, the three largest ones. Housekeeping, getting our units cleaned every week takes 22% of our budget. That's what housekeeping costs us. Admin in general, about 25%, and salaries and wages, about 26%. So you add those three up, and you're 3/4 of our annual operating expenses are just in those three categories. Next slide. If you want to look at this on a maintenance fee basis, where does your $995 go? So every time your unit is cleaned, you're contributing $217 of that $995 to have your unit serviced for the next family to come in after you check out. Admin in general costs about $251 of your maintenance fee, salaries and wages about $255. Again, those are the big drivers on the expense side for our resort. Now, on the next slide, a recap of the special assessment situation here, the status, if you will, as to what we have taken in or what we expect to take in and where we are in terms of spending and what's left over. So if we go down the line, these were the major elements that you see here in the left-hand column that were the users, if you will, of the special assessment. And those were the budgets for those elements there. And the next line, the next column, the actual, that's what we actually spent or have spent to date in those categories, each of those major items there. And then the difference on to the right. So what this is basically saying, if you look at the lower right-hand number, that when we finish all expenditures for phase one of the interior refurbishment, when we pay all the bills for the recreation center, the other things, the sprinklers are done, dune ramp is done, we've paid for all of that, we expect to have $1.2 million left over from the initial special assessment. That will be, it's a combination of money in the bank and a receivable from our whole owners. We have two whole owners in our association, 113 and 401 are wholly owned. They're not interval owned. And then the 200 building. The 200 building, for anyone who doesn't know, it contributes to the common area expenses of our resort. 13% of the contributions to the common area come from the 200 building. 87% of the funds to run the common area come from us on the interval side. So we waited until we knew what the final tally is going to be for the recreation center so that we could give one number to our whole owners and to the 200 building owners. And so the amount we expect from all of that is that $444,000 that you see down in the lower left-hand corner. Next slide. This is a quick recap here of where we are and where we're going and what our options are. We talked about the Quest plumbing replacement, $865,000 to replace the plumbing, and that includes the repairs, if you will. You know, a lot of drywall will have to be opened up. That drywall has to be patched, and painting has to be done. So the $865,000 would take care of that. The estimated cost to complete the interior upgrades against all remaining buildings, $2 million. That's just to do what you've seen done in buildings 300, 400, and 500. So that's to do everything else in the resort. So the total estimated cost is about $2.9 million. I said on the previous slide, we have $1.2 million that we expect to have left in the bank. So we have a $1.7 million shortfall here, projected just to do what we are supposed to do through the phase one interior upgrades, the recreation center, and everything that covered on the prior slide. Why did that happen? Well, there are several reasons. One, just as you saw when you go buy eggs and what have you and beef at the grocery store, everything went up. Everything went up from the time we levied the assessment and came up with our initial budget. So we had a lot of problems with cost increases. We had no revenue increases. We didn't re-levy anybody to compensate for this. So we had plenty of cost increases with no increase in revenue. We also ran into what I would just call significant stumbling blocks at the town, the county, and to some extent the state level in terms of the recreation center specifically. You can't cut down a tree without having a plan to replace a tree. You can't just go in and grade the ground without having water runoff and retention ponds built. You can't shortchange. If you remember the old recreation center had a few parking spaces, I would say, kind of scattered around. Well, you can't do that anymore. Now, based on the capacity of the building, the square footage and the anticipated capacity, that dictates the number of parking spaces that we have to provide. So we can't just say, well, we're not opening this to the public. There won't be any additional cars on the resort that aren't already there just because they're driving from their unit to the rec center or they're staying at their unit and walking to the rec center. The town doesn't want to hear that. The town says if you have a building of X size, you have to have Y parking spaces. So we have to put in a parking lot. And it was issue after issue after issue that really caused a lot of the cost overruns in the recreation center and dragged out the time frame to before we could even put a spade in the ground to start really working on that building. It just really was a terrible experience in my plain speaking way of putting it here. And the big difference is, as we've heard this term used again and again, and I've used it, when that building was built, when all of our buildings were built in the early to mid 80s, it was the Wild West down here. Yeah, the zoning was I won't say non-existent, but it certainly wasn't what it is today. I'm not sure we could rebuild our resort exactly the way it is today, but so much has changed in those intervening 30 plus years that tackling a project as the recreation center, which just looks like a building on a plot of ground, was a significant challenge. So the recreation center cost went up 176% from what we budgeted. We originally thought that was going to be $1.7 million. The current estimate, which we're pretty firm with, is $3 million, and that's even with a less of a building than we intended to build. Okay, the original scope had the check-in building and all the administrative folks housed in the new recreation center on a second floor office. We had to scrap that. So we brought the scope of the building down, and it still cost us 176% more than what the original budget was. So what do we do about it? We looked at using our idle weeks. We looked at vacation clubs. We looked at, we were negotiating with Capital Vacations on a program that they have that would involve giving up units in exchange for support behind a loan that would allow us to invest money into the resort. None of that worked. We couldn't get any of that. We couldn't get any partner to join us. Outside financing, owners have contacted me, why don't you borrow the money? Well, there are a couple of reasons why we can't just borrow the money. First of all, no bank will lend to us. Why won't they lend to us? Because we can't guarantee the loan. No more than you or I could go and borrow money without putting up collateral. The only collateral we have to offer is future income flows, so our maintenance fees, if you will, and that would only be for a year, because that's as long as maintenance fees last. So we tried to look at 7 to 10 year financing, and no one would talk with us. We don't have any kind of security that we can offer for that kind of financing. So that avenue, unfortunately, was closed to us. Another avenue is repurposing. Now, this is a term we've never discussed before in here, to my knowledge. But repurposing is taking an existing building or buildings and changing their usage. So going from a timeshare to something else. Something else could be anything else. It could be a campground. It could be a hotel. More than likely, it's a wholly owned condominium. And this is what a lot of legacy resorts are doing. They are taking part, or in some cases all of their resort, and it's being converted to a different form of ownership. one of the things we have here, and I ask you to remember that 55% number, if you will. The other way to look at that is 45% of our units are idle. Those are the units that are for owners that are not paying the bill. Now, if I put on my finance hat out of hospitality, if I were in manufacturing, if I had a factory that was 55% used and 45% not used, I can pretty much guarantee you I would have a problem. Okay, I'd be carrying a lot of overhead that is not earning me a dollar. Okay, so what would I do? I would look for a tenant. I would look to sell off part of that building. I'd rent that space. I'd do anything I could to reduce my costs and maximize what I have going forward. Or I would try to grow my business to occupy that idle 45%. We tried growing the business. The charts I showed earlier suggest that we are not growing our business. We're not growing our owner base. The owner base continues to shrink. At 70% ownership, 30% delinquencies, I thought we had hit bottom. The budget next year is 55% paying, 45% not paying, and I still don't know if we've hit bottom. Okay, I just don't know. No one knows that. We don't know that. So what are we looking at here in the way of repurposing? And you see shrinking owner base, surplus units under reimagining the resort, repurposing the resort. The big issue we have, unlike the warehouse example or factory example I just discussed, is our shortfall, if you will, is not evenly spread through the year. Okay? We don't have an occupancy problem in the summertime. Okay? We have just the opposite this time of year. As if you drove through the resort, you do not see a lot of cars there. So the problem we have is in terms of we can't take 45% of our buildings and do something with them because the demand is pushing 100% in parts of June, July, and August. But there are things that we're looking at. So what we're looking at is we're working right now with 3 bidders, if you want to use that term, I will use that term, who have already proposed to us ways of utilizing the idle space, reconfiguring it. And what that would mean is taking a building, possibly 2 buildings, depending on how the economics work in this, and converting them from interval ownership to whole ownership, taking the owners who are in those buildings that would be affected and offering them several options, a couple options at least. One would be a buyout. If you want to sell your unit, there'd be a way to sell your unit. You would get compensation for that. If you just wanted to deed back your unit, you might be able to do that. You might be able to move into existing units. I tell you, we own better than 10% of the units. We have vacancies that we could possibly move owners from building X to building Y. Okay? The challenge is trying to get an owner in X who may have a 3-bedroom lockout, a 3-bedroom lockout in Y, because we may not have it in the week that owner wants. So there are a lot of dynamics here that are in play right now to try to figure out how we can make this work for the benefit of the owners. So we don't have a lot of answers yet. We have a lot of questions. We're continuing to pursue this. There'll be certainly more coming in the form of written and probably online meetings, briefings, if you will, as we talk about this. But what we're trying to do is avoid the last bullet here. We're trying to stay away from that as much as we can, okay? And recognizing that we have a 1.7 million problem. Now, what will repurposing possibly do for us? Go up to right here. And this is where we're looking at the attractiveness of this. Depending on the offer that we might get, we're trying to negotiate hard to receive as much money up front as we can. And we have one proposal that looks to be offering us about $1.5 million up front, with a possible distribution at the back end after the units are converted and sold off and the profits are shared, that might bring us as much as another $1.5 million. Well, the upfront money of $1.5 million plus the 1.2 that we have or that we will be getting is $2.7 million, which is very close to the $2.9 million that we think right there. It's off by a couple $100,000, and we're talking estimates rounded to hundreds of thousands of dollars, so there can't be a lot of precision in this. But that brings us awfully close, that would enable us to replace all the Quest plumbing and to complete the Phase 1 upgrades in all the remaining buildings. So this is why we're really looking at this very, very seriously. There'll be more coming out on this as we learn more and as we hopefully have successful negotiations with the bidders here. But this is something that is coming down the pike. So I just wanted to let everyone know that. And I think that is my last slide, I believe. And
What building would that be if they did that?
say again?
What building would that be if they did that?
That's, to some extent, up to the bidder, if you will. We haven't identified those yet. Plus, this, I will say right up front, is an extraordinarily difficult process from a legal perspective in terms of, this is not a decision, by the way, that the board can make. We can't say we're going to repurpose X building and make it happen. The owners of that building have to agree to this. Okay? This is all tied up in your declarations. This is a process that will take easily 2 years. If we were to sign with one of these bidders on January 1st, the attractiveness is that upfront payment that I talked about, that we would be able to get that as close to day one as possible. It might not be day one, but we know we would get that early with a potential back-end payout. When would the back-end payout come? 24 to 36 months after we start, because for a full year, it would be surveying owners, getting votes, tracking down delinquents, getting deeds conveyed. We've already talked to some attorney, getting some attorney input, I should say, in terms of how this process would work. The people with whom we are working have done this before. They know how to do this. This is not for the faint of heart. It's not for the amateurs. It's for someone who knows what they're doing, and we're working with people who have done this. So, but it's still going to be very, very difficult. So, don't want to make it sound easy at all. So.
So they would pay the 1.5 million up front and not know which building they're gonna buy?
Oh, no, at that point, they would, because they would be, but, at the end of the day, our buildings are, I don't want to say they're all equal, but except for, say, 600, which is only 6 units, you're talking, it's all going to be based on economics, what they think they could sell, the number of units they could sell for what they think they could get, and then what the costs would be, and to see what the profit is at the back end. But if they believe there's enough profit at the back end, that at least one of them would be willing to give us money on the front end, against, as sort of an advance to us, a non-refundable advance. That'd be our money. If they lose money on the back end, they lose money on the back end. We don't give back the $1.5 million. It's just a question, we don't get as much on the back end. Yeah, if you could hold those, please. We want to get through the presentation. We will take all the questions because I think this is extraordinarily important. We don't want to short circuit that, but we just want to keep this process going. So please hold those questions and come back to us at the Q&A, please. Thank you.
This here, there's 2 quick slides up here. So my name is Justin Smith with VRI Capital Vacations. So this is going to be your organizational chart of kind of how things work here, kind of letting you know who people are. I'm kind of the liaison with VRI Capital Vacations, as is my colleague Scott Dravis, who unfortunately couldn't be here. So we work with the board of directors as well as Walter and the team here. A lot of you guys have probably spoke to a lot of our coworkers, whether it be in reservations with the owner services team. So we're available to help. I'm here after the meeting. Come grab me if you have questions. I can certainly try to help or take your info to help you after the meeting. And then we work obviously with multiple resorts, so it can help you, exchange questions and so on too. Then there's one more slide just with some pictures. And I promise you next year we will update these pictures because I look about 20 and Scott is there. So. And then on here, like a lot of you guys already know, the extraordinary team at the resort. I think everybody knows Walter, probably most people. Then you have Allie, Bill, Amanda, and Mark. Some of these guys have been here for years. I mean, I've gotten to know them, the board knows them, and you guys as owners obviously know them, and I think most everybody would say they do a great job. You have a great team here. I work with multiple resorts, and they really, are a stellar group. So appreciation to them.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, so we'll go over a few things that we did this past year and some things we're looking to do. The first one's a big one. This year and last year, it's a big one. And we put large staff participation, but so when we look at building 400, that's 18 units, that's 18 houses. They're 1,500 square foot houses, and there's 18 of them. And we looked at a company to come in, take out all the furniture, house it, take out all the appliances, everything that has to come out to refurbish a unit. And it came out at $57,000 for them to take it out, put it back in. And so we looked at it and said, all right, those ugly containers that you see when you pull in the property, how much do those cost? How much can we get those for? So we bought a few of those, and I say we, loosely as we, not Walt, but the staff, including security, everybody that we had available, they're the ones that went in and pulled all that furniture out, bubble wrapped it, put it up, and then when it was done, put every bit of it back in place. And so that's a huge accomplishment. And like I said, that was a $57,000 bill that we did in-house. And we did the same. They did the same thing in the 500 building. They did the same thing in the 300 building. So that's the majority of their winter last year was the maintenance team, the security team, helping make that happen. The AC that they talked about, we do have on budget 17. There's 181 air conditioners on the property, so it gives us about 10-year turnaround for every air conditioning. We try to estimate it in the early winter, spring. We look at the worst case, the ones that are on their last leg. We grab those and hope that we don't hit that many in the summer that go down on us. This year we overshot it. We did that. Actually, we had one go down last week, so it's actually 24 that we've done this year. We're 3 years into that program, so you can kind of do the math. We're about 7 years away from everything being touched on the property, having a new air conditioning. Installation of pickleball, we looked at that, and we actually had a lot of discussion with pickleball, a lot of studies done on pickleball. The obvious choice was put it where the tennis court was. If you're a pickleballer, there's a dinking, and so the dink echoes off the buildings, and we looked at it and said it's a popular sport. A lot of people like to do it, but the people who probably don't want to hear the dinking off of their building, 700, 400. So we chose to add on to the basketball court at a lower cost and put in a single pickleball court there. Carmen had mentioned the Quest pipe. So we battle that quite a bit. The problem with Quest pipe is it's unsolicited. Nothing causes it. It does it on its own. We had Building 3, or units 318A and B, they're somewhat unique. There's 4 units above them. They share a floor plan of 4 different units across those 2. And so 2 years ago we had a pipe bust and it flooded those 2 units. They got a full renovation at the cost of insurance, and then last year it did it again. And so now, obviously these 2, we've upgraded the plumbing. There's no Quest pipe left in these units. The units above, we have upgraded all the plumbing. There's no Quest pipe left in those, so we've made sure that hopefully this doesn't happen again. 516 had some structural issues in the floor system. They've been repaired. The unit is done. We're waiting on the cabinets. The kitchen cabinets had to come out. They're 1980 particle board. They didn't last coming out to go back in, so they do get a new kitchen in that unit. Obviously, Snack Shack. Snack Shack's a big one. We had thought that we were going to operate the Snack Shack this year. We looked for partners. I know nothing about the food business at all. I don't know how to create a menu and how to eat at a restaurant, but I don't know how to operate a restaurant. And we were to the point of pulling our permits to operate it in-house, and we got lucky that someone reached out to us and said they were interested. I think they had a fairly good year. They're planning on being back with us next year. It's not a moneymaker. So it's by the time you staff it 7 days a week, it's not a huge moneymaker for anybody. When I looked at it, the best I could put together a budget, we broke even. We weren't making any money off it. It becomes an amenity for our owners. That's all it is a place for you guys to be able to grab lunch and the association not to lose money on it. So we were very happy to have a partner. Hopefully they will come back again this year. And then, as always, with anything, they take feedback. So if if there's something on the menu you don't like, something you want to see different, those guys, they want you to buy their food. So they want to make sure that there's something there that you want. So, like with any of that stuff, they will certainly take feedback. Golf cart parking this year, it's amazing the amount of golf carts we had on property this summer. They were everywhere. There's obviously not a lot of parking at the beach, so they're all up on the dunes or wherever they could go. So we had taken the opportunity to cut in a spot. There'll be some signage before next summer to where it's for golf cart parking only. The other one is challenges in the Outer Banks. Everything's a challenge in the Outer Banks. There is one recycling center. It is way off island. And so we have what you would call a scrapper. Obviously we go, as we do 23 air conditionings, those air handlers, those outdoor units have to go somewhere. We do not own vehicles at the resort. We own golf carts. We do not own vehicles that are going to take us 30 miles off property. So we take that and we put it in an area. A scrapper comes and gets it and takes it away for us at no cost. The downfall is it's unsightly. It's ugly. So you see old refrigerators, old air conditionings, all waiting for somebody to come pick up. So we corralled it, built a corral around it, so at least it's there. You don't know it's there. That's kind of some of the issues we have. Some of the other things is we're running out of space. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's not a lot of space to move and to hide things. Same thing last year. We installed new TVs and all the new units. We put them on the walls. Summer came before we had time to go in and hide all the cords, paint all that. So all that's been done. Most of that has been done by our security team. Our security team has taken that project on. When the guard shack's slow, they'll go out, grab a unit, install, paint. So as you can see, it's kind of a trend. Like everything we do is a group effort. There's no just maintenance. There is no just front desk. Everybody does everything. We are a small group, so in order to keep it going and operating, it has to be an all-hands-on-deck effort. And then these two bottom ones, they don't impact you folks as much. It's a huge impact for us. We were bought by Capital last year. As a staff member, we don't know what that means. We never know what that means. And for us, we came in, and one is like Carmen showed, our bills are $3.8 million. That comes through my desk and Amanda Johnson's desk. Every one of those bills has to come through our desk to get paid. And Memorial Day weekend, our new sister company, Capital, said, hey, we're giving you a new accounting system. Figure it out. And so we're figuring out, how do we pay the electric bill? How do we pay the water bill? How do we keep everything going? So it's a big feat. And then the other part of that is VRI's had a property management system, how we send you bills, how we check you in, how we do renters. Same system. They've had the system probably since '86. It's a DOS-based system. Everybody knows it, loves it. Right at the beginning of June, Capital says, hey, you got a new operating system. Here you go. Figure it out. Great system, works awesome, it's window-based, it's modern, but it's new. So there's 2 weeks of everybody looking at you saying, how do we check people in? Owners are here, how do we get it? We know how to give them keys, but how do we know that they're actually in their unit? So these are big ones for staff, and it doesn't just affect the front desk. Maintenance, or security checks you folks in at night, they've got to learn this whole new system. Maintenance, when they go and check units, they'd have to know who's there. So now they're learning how to see who's in-house, who's actually in these units, so they don't walk in on you to do something. So these were two massive ones for staff that they mastered. They killed it. They went in, they killed it. The lights were still on when you came in, so that's a plus. We figured out how to pay bills. So these were two huge ones. The bottom two, or the bottom and the top, are massive, massive accomplishments by our staff. Going into next year, staff is working on this right now. We're about halfway done. The sofas that were bought for the B side, some of you that own in the 600, 700, notice you had new sofas in the A, but you don't have them in the B. The sofas are too big to go through the doors of the B. And so as we were doing the remodel, the door comes off. There's a bigger door that goes in, and it'll come in and out as it pleases. Well, we're not remodeling 600 and 700 yet, so We're trying to figure out how to get them in. So the whole entire door jamb, everything has to come out. New sofa comes in, new one goes out, door jamb gets rebuilt. And so that's why it didn't happen this summer, because it takes about a day per unit to take it apart, put it in, put it back together. And staff has started working on it. We're about halfway done between these units here. And some of your own property, you've probably seen them. I mean, we've got the lull, we'll put it on the balcony, they'll take the old sofa out. The other thing we did is we're trying to, some of the smaller items that didn't get done in the refurbishment that we know that we could afford through our operating, not having to hit our reserves. If we can afford them, we're just grabbing them and moving along. So building 500, as you saw in Carmen's, we've done pretty favorable in our budget, so we felt like we had the extra money to spend, so we bought new commodes for all of building 500, comfort height, low flows. They'll be installed by the end of the year. At the beginning of the year, if we feel that our budget's going to sustain, we'll go grab 300, and then at the end of the year, if we same process again, we'll grab 400. And we're trying to grab those little items that we feel like we can do in-house, not a massive impact to our budget, but it's a noticeable impact for our owners. We don't want to slow any momentum that we have as far as upgrading these units. So we're always trying to find a way to do what we can do in-house without spending, as Carmen said, the $2.9 million. Recreation center, construction and setup. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but that's a massive project. Just the easiest way to think, and Carmen spoke about it, the way the state, we look at it is it's a recreation center right in the middle of our property, it's ours. The state looks at it, Town of Duck looks like it, as if you're building a YMCA in the heart of the city, heart of the town. That's the way they look at it. They look at it as a commercial building, not tied to us, it's a standalone, so it's got a $500,000 drainage system. It's got a parking lot that we probably will never use. It's 29 parking spaces in a parking lot, all state requirements. But that's how it's looked at by the state of North Carolina and the Town of Duck. So we look at it as we're just replacing what we had. They're looking at it as we're building a YMCA right in the middle of our property. Gutter installation, we've started that project. Building 500 and the VIP are left. We'll go through and resurface the tennis courts, repaint them, resurface them to match our pickleball court. We actually bought paint. It's a special paint. It's kind of tough to get a hold of, so we bought enough to go ahead and do it while we bought the pickleball court. So we've already got it. It's just the labor that is involved there. We've actually hired the folks that are doing our video here to do drone shoots of our roofs, to come in and give us a drone shots of all the roofs so that we can do a roof inspection. As you know, most of our buildings are 3-4 stories tall, so being able to get a bird's eye view is quite difficult. So that's one of the things we have in process there, just to get an idea of what's going on. Same thing with the skylights. There's a lot of the folks that have skylights in the I think you guys call them VIP, or the 3-bedroom loft units. It's time for them to be replaced. Most of the seals are gone. You can't see through them anymore. So we've started in 800 and grabbing as many of those as the budget will allow. Same with the entry doors. We've had some entry doors that just have rotten, and it seems to be a trend in certain buildings. And we're same thing, going through as much as our budget will allow to grab. And then there's a few other, the outdoor pool, we're constantly doing the outdoor pool. We're now receiving bids to resurface the pool, the tile line, replumb it, and then redo the deck. The deck out there looks like it's had repairs over years after years, and there's part paver, part concrete. We're looking at what it would cost, and this is a common area budget. And as Carmen said, 87% of that comes from the association. The other 13 comes from the common, or the Building 200 folks. But what it would cost to have that all pavered, have it refreshed. There is some plumbing issues. The plumbing obviously is 30-some years old to the pool, so there's some leaks. So we're in the bidding process of now what that looks like to resurface our outdoor pool. And then again, this is our staff. They did, when we did the bid for the renovations, the outlets are old. You plug in your cell phone charger, it falls right out. It's a beige outlet with a white plate on it. So we had asked them to give us a quote on going through, switch all the switches to white, all the outlets to white. It's $125 an outlet. And you imagine how many we have in these units. So again, staff, kudos to staff. They did this. They've done building 500, every outlet, every switch in building 500. Not the plates, but the plates and the outlet. They've done the same in building 400, and they're in the process of doing building 300 now. And that, so we made electricians out of them. And you'll see, so there's a video of staff, you'll see them on the floor, and they're sitting there at an outlet, swapping out an outlet. And then the other one's one that drives a pet peeve of mine is there's 30 different types of plates, 15 different frying pans across every building on the property, and we're trying to figure out within our budget how to standardize every single unit so that we know that every unit has this frying pan, this plate, because trying to manage this array of inventory is next to impossible. But we're also doing it within our budget. And so that's where the constraints are. Building 500, you see Heather down here doing an outlet. But building 500, as we move back, it'll have new housewares this year. Most likely building 300, we'll get it before summer starts, and then we'll grab 400 and just keep going down the line until everybody matches. But yep, there's the staff doing what they do. Mr. Todd, I always give him a shout out. He's 96 years old. Pretty awesome. Coach shows up to work every day. But that's it. Thanks.
I'm back, and I'm back with a gripe. My gripe is, every year for the past 3 years, I've talked to you about bylaws. But you see, I get to talk to you after two of the most dynamic speakers you'll ever see talk to you. One is Carmen DiGiovanni, another is Walter Hancock. So if I come across as a bit of an attitude, you'll understand why. Having said that, and without further complaint, the proposed bylaws, if I may. Simply stated, the proposed bylaws, once adopted, will allow us to operate consistent with contemporary business practices in North Carolina. Now, one owner described that to me as just one more phrase in 22 pages of gobbledygook. I, quite frankly, think that's 22 pages of bureaucratic work of art, but that's just me. Take a look here. What does that phrase really mean? If you look at the issue of conducting this meeting in this room, all of us showing up here, we've got what I would consider a less than normal turnout at this time. And the guess is that a lot of people are viewing from home, which is great. They can view from home. The problem is, as our current bylaws are written, they can't participate. They can't vote. They can't count towards a quorum. Once we approve the proposed bylaws, you'll be able to vote from home, having coffee, in your pajamas, in the kitchen, out on the deck, wherever you get internet access. You'll be able to vote as if you were here. So that's one of the reasons why we want to get moving on the proposed bylaws. And in order to do that, we'll need your help. We currently have 1,766 as a threshold to adopt the bylaws. The current vote count is 1,369 votes. We need 397 more. When you checked in, you were given a ballot. If you want to review the bylaws, you can go to the barrierislandstationresort.com, go to the Owners tab, log in, that'll take you immediately to the Bylaws page. On the Bylaws page, you'll see the proposed bylaws and related documents. We've got a detailed listing of the 31 major changes that we've made to the bylaws. You'll see a recording that we made of a webinar that we conducted when we first promulgated the bylaws, and a ballot. So you can vote now, or you can go to the website, take a look at what we've done, and vote then. Again, here we are. 1,766 needed, 1,369 received, 397 more received. If you voted, we thank you. If you voted yes, an even bigger thank you. If you voted no, thank you for participating. Okay? But we ask you again, please vote. Thank you.
All right. So I get the next two fun ones. Rec Center. We're excited about this, but as Carmen said, it's been painstaking. It's been educational and painstaking. It seems like we've had a lot of little challenges. We've had a few massive challenges. A massive challenge, and I'll tell you what they are, and luckily I can tell you they've all been overcome. One massive challenge is, if you remember your old rec center, I think I went into it once before it was tore down. Your ceilings in your pool area are about 7.5 foot tall. There's no ventilation, and it rained. Humidity, and it rained. And so the building that we're building has a massive dehumidification system to keep that from happening, to keep the rot from happening, keep the moisture from happening, the humidity down. It is, and when I say massive, it has to be placed in the building before the roof's put on. It showed up last week. Well, you've all been on the property, you've seen the building. It's got a roof, it's there. And so that was challenge number one. How do we continue to build a building and get a massive piece of equipment in the building's supposed to be built around? That's challenge number one. Clark Dexon team came up with some ideas, some ingenious ideas, and hopefully they work. Like I said, it showed up last week. We're happy to have it on property. This is a piece of equipment. This group here and Justin and I meet with our construction crew every week, every Tuesday. I meet with them almost every day. We meet them as a group every single Tuesday, go over progress, what challenges, what the issues are. This group, we meet every Wednesday, and we've done this for 18 months. So when you say be the squeaky wheel, there's no more squeaks to give. Like we have thumb on everybody as hard as we possibly could to get this thing taken. So that's challenge number one. That's what slowed down a timeline that said, this is how we're building this property, and then all said, hey, hold up, we've got to do something different. Challenge number two is, as you guys have watched, and if you watched the owner's update, we built the pool early. The building was built around the pool. Building was built early. Our pool was built early. 8 weeks ago, the state said, hey, we didn't get an opportunity to look at the plumbing of your pool. The county said we saw it, but the state says we want to look at it. So the entire pool had to be dug back up. All the plumbing had to be dug back up around the pool for the state to come out and inspect the pool. State comes when the state wants to come. And so the state inspected the pool this Monday. So now the pool, everything can be started back over again. So that's delay number two. We're able to work on the clubhouse side. And the clubhouse side has moved along pretty well. I think the finished coat of paint on the walls will go in this week. Tiles down in the bathrooms, doors are hung, hardware's up, pretty much closed. The recreation or the pool side will get insulated this upcoming week. The following week it'll get its artificial stucco put in, and then they'll progress on. So currently we're looking at a late January opening. What else challenges we have, we don't know. We don't think there's any, knock on wood. We go through with the Clark Nexon team and we ask them what else is left, what materials do you need, what's the projected timeline to get it sitting on our property, and everything that we can think of so far we've got on a timeline, and we feel like we budgeted correctly in the time. So we're excited to get it done. Our whole goal for this building was to have it done today. From the start was to have it done today so that you guys could walk through. Unfortunately, we did not meet that. So an alternative that we did do, and that Baldwin that's recording this that helped us with, and Justin will show us, is we had them do a walkthrough of the building, a video walkthrough of the building, so that you guys could get an idea of where we're at, what it looks like, what's going to be in it. And I think you'll be impressed. We've done, as Carmen said, we had to bring the scope down, but it has everything that you had before at a little bit nicer scale, a little bit bigger scale. And it's built to last. It is a commercial building. It's a nice building. This video was done 2 weeks ago. The vanities are in the bathrooms. The front doors are on the building. Every week there's something happening. But yeah, it will be a nice building. It certainly will. And then going back to interior upgrades, we did Building 400. Building 400 was turned over to us late April, back to the staff as we started putting furniture back in, appliances back in. We noticed a lot of deficiencies as we started walking, especially in the paint. Problem being is when you notice deficiency in late April, early May, that's when owners want to come. And that's when our property occupancy goes up. So there's only so much we can do. So we chose to let everybody back in the buildings, operate the building, and then go back in and address the issues. So we started early October, October 1st, going back in. We give our contracting crew, Clark Nexon, 2 units a week. They go in, they're repainting the trim, the walls, any deficiencies that we found. And then they give them back to us early week, and there's an inspection process. We go through, we create a punch list, they go back in and address it. Sometimes it's done one time. The unit, some of you may own 408. Unit 408 was one this week. We've inspected it multiple times until we've got a finished product. Much better than what we had before. There's adequate paint. We did the cabinets. We noticed the cabinets were chipping when we checked it in the spring, so they've sanded down the cabinets, primed and painted, gone back through. So I think we got a different, I know that we have a much different product that we had in the spring. And then the same in the building in 5 and 3. So in 5 and 3, we found deficiencies that are under warranty. We noticed things in the stairs. There's some deficiencies in the product that they use in the stairs that they'll go back and address now that the buildings have become empty. But it's a much different. We all agree when we walked, and the board walked as well in the early spring, that it was a refresh, but it wasn't what we thought we had paid for. Not meaning that we still have kitchen cabinets. It's just the paint job was not what it should have been. The trim job was not what it should have been. And so we've held Clark Nexon to the fire to correct. We withheld payment from them until they do get it correct. And so far they're doing as they're supposed to. We're roughly halfway through the 400 building right now. They'll have 2 more weeks or 2 more units this upcoming week until they finish it out. And then there's always deficiencies that we find that belong to us. We found a leak in 418 while we were back in there repainting. It's getting a new bathroom because it has to. And then like I said, far as future goes, we're putting the sofas in the 600 and 700 building, and we're still working on the timeline. This is all based back to what Carmen had said before as far as a budget. We know that we've got some cash. We know there's a much needed more cash. What do we do to keep the momentum going? So it's kind of a 2-part process. One thing that, before my time's up, to add, when we look at interior upgrade, when we look at anything based on these units, everybody, and it caught my eye when Carmen had showed his pie graph, and it showed how much we pay for housekeeping. And it was $219. We don't pay $219 for a unit to clean. We pay $115 plus linens. But the reason that number averages out higher is everybody in the world sees your lockout units as 2 units, except for Barrier Island sees it as 1 unit. So when you get assessed for 1 unit. You pay $2,200 for 1 lockout unit. But when the contractor comes in and does a renovation, he's charging us for 2 units. When housekeeping comes in and cleans, they're charging me for 2 units and 2 units worth of linens. And so that's where you kind of get in some different budget constraints, because just rough numbers, a building 300 3-bedroom unit renovation somewhere in the $30,000 mark by time of materials and flooring. An A and B is around 41. Well, the same assessment, it was still $2,200 for both. So it just gives you a better idea of how that happens, and that's how that 219 number shows up, because for an A and B, we're paying $225 to clean it. For a 301, we're paying $115 to clean it. So everybody in the world outside of this room sees those as 2 units. And inside this room, we all see them as 1, and Bill as 1. So it creates a little bit of a challenging when you start going through these type projects. All right. Okay. Oh, is it me again? All right. Yeah. There we go. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and this is building 400, 418. One of the things we did, and we've received mostly good feedback on, is trying to open up the spaces. You'll see these had upper cabinets that blocked off the kitchen. We took it out, added a light in most of those. But owners that have been here, you've had burgundy carpet. I mean, it's just the light of these units. They're bright, they're fresh, they feel fresh. And what we talk about is we were miles away from a modern day product 2 years ago. I feel now we're footsteps away. We're new bar stools away. We're new dining table away. We're new cabinets away. We're not a mile away from a modern, updated product. And that's where some of the decisions were made when you look at what an entire soup to nuts renovation costs versus what we had. Where do you go? And you go, our thought process is you go with infrastructure items, the big stuff that we can't come back and do later. Floors, trim, paint, walls, and then obviously sofas. You guys have been sitting on 35-year-old sofas for 35 years. So that was the thought process, is grab the things that we know that we need to do. These things here can be added at any time and fairly easy. So that was the thought process, and that's why you see the items that are there.
I don't see anything listed on the 800 unit. What's the prognosis on that?
That goes back to the scheduling. So the scheduling is going through, like as Carmen had mentioned, the budget, and what do we do with, we've got a shortfall, and what do we do between now and then with the money that we have and the money that we need. So we've been working on a schedule. It's hard to finalize a schedule until we know where the funds come from.
Okay, so we're now at the point, excuse me, where we're having the election and the board of directors. We are a functional board. If you would like to participate and be a member of the board of directors here, let me just review the qualifications again. You need to be an owner in good standing. There's 3 to 4 on-site meetings per year. We have monthly conference calls. You'll need to provide your fingerprints to the state of North Carolina, so if we do get back, and I know Walter doesn't want us to do this, but in case we have to do the snack shack, we'll need to have licenses for that. So hopefully, we won't need to do that, but you are required to get fingerprints. And you need to be able to contribute and help us to make sound business decisions. All right, next screen. This year, we have 2 positions up, and we have 2 people that we received submissions for to want to run for the board again. You still have an opportunity here, so if there's someone here that did not submit and would like to run for the board, we're going to give you a few minutes as well to be nominated and come up and speak to us. I'm going to ask, excuse me, Carmen DiGiovanni, who's the treasurer, to come up and tell us about himself and why he wants to run for the board again. So, Carmen.
Not sure why I want to run for the board, but that's, let's see if I can make up something real quickly here. But yeah. I wish I had a printing press in the basement. That would give me more reason to run for the board. But yeah, I've been a member of the board. I was first elected in 2014 as a treasurer. It's a position I've held. I have, on the civilian side, I have a background in accounting and finance. I've been a business owner. I understand financial statements. I understand where money comes from, where it goes. why it can't just be invented. And so I try to bring, my financial and business acumen, what I've experienced, the experience I've gained over 40, close to 50 years, I guess, of real world experience here to this board. It's probably something, frankly, the board did not have, not bragging about it, but I don't think it really had the expertise prior to my arrival. I spent a lot of time in working with the VRI team, working on my own, trying to be creative about things. I try to think outside of the box. A number of the things that have been talked about today actually were not bragging, but they were ideas that I brought to the table that the board debated, and the board accepted some, didn't accept others, but those that accepted are hoping to make the resort better. I hope to continue that if I am elected, if I get your vote on this. We are at a critical time. I think I've hopefully expressed some of that in my presentation of the options that we're studying, why they have to be studied, the impact they may have on our resort and our ability to continue to improve it the way we'd like to see it improved. When I first ran in 2014, I said I was going to copy or emulate Newt Gingrich's points that he made when he became Speaker of the House. If you remember back when it was 1994, he asked his elected representatives to take a pledge to run for no more than 3 terms, self-imposed term limits, if you will. 3 terms in the House, 2 terms in the Senate. As part of my speech, I said that I would follow that I would serve for 3 terms, and then it was time to turn it over to someone else. Last time was my 4th time so that I ran, and plus 1 additional year because of COVID, when we all were extended by a year because we couldn't have this meeting. We couldn't do business, which is the point that Austin was making about why we want to go forward with the new bylaws. We would have been allowed to have a meeting that year remotely had we had the bylaws we hope to pass. So anyway, what I'm saying here is I hope there is somebody out there who also has some financial talent they want to bring to the table, because at this point I intend for this to be my final step up here for election. And I do think I am a firm believer that the baton needs to be passed periodically. And so I'm not going to give the speech that, if nominated, I will not run, if elected, I will not serve, but I'd like to see if there are, hopefully for next time, someone else who would like to assume the role of treasurer with whom I would gladly work and impart on them the things I've done and let them bring their own talents to the table. But I appreciate your vote today. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'd like to introduce Rich Vanelli, our secretary, to come up.
Well, 2 years ago when I threw my hat in the ring, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But, it's been a great honor working with this very dedicated board over the last 2 years. And I think they wanted me on the board because they found out that I was an architect. And, with the rec center project going on and all the interior upgrades, I think they made good use of my volunteer time. I got involved over the last year and a half, in helping the architect of the rec center redesign a value engineered rec center in order to get a little bit closer to be in line with our budget. And in fact, I always say to people that I sketched out the new rec center design on the back of a napkin. And worked very closely with the architect in getting them to redraw the drawings so that they could be submitted for permit. And now we can see the fruits of all of our efforts over here, and it's almost ready to open. So, the job is not finished. There's still other upgrades and other architectural issues and design issues that still will need to be made over the next 2 years, and I would like to continue on in this position, so I do ask for your vote. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to make a nomination from the floor? Anyone? Going once? Twice? Okay. There seems to be no other people that want to run for the board, so would someone like to make a motion to close the nominations? Is that right?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, and your name, sir?
Joseph Evans,
Joseph Evans, and who's second?
William Bankart.
Bancart, Mr. Bancart, okay. All right. Since we don't have, excuse me, excuse me, since we don't have any more people running and there's just 2 positions and 2 people running, can we go ahead and make a motion to accept the position? What exactly would that motion be?
Consent. We just do that, unanimous?
To cast one vote in favor of the 2 individuals running for 2 positions.
A motion to cast 1 vote in favor of the 2 positions? All right. And who wants to second that?
Second.
Okay, the Fergusons. All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, ayes have it. All right, then that moves us right into the question and answer period. Okay. Can you take a break?
15 minutes?
Yes, we've got plenty of time today, so you can take a 15-minute break. Okay. So that'll be...
Yeah, if you got it. Did y'all go get some? Yes, sir, certainly. we were looked at too, the town was, they're still proposing putting in a drivable beach access on our property. We'd be the only one in the town of Duck that has it, and our owners could use it. But then if you're local and you're a fisherman, we're the only guy in town that you could go if you're an owner.
I'm gonna send something
And
up to
so
somebody now.
we've looked at some different perspectives to try to see if we can, if you use the week, I don't care, but at least we get the revenue from being able to do it.
Yeah, 110. Will everybody please take their seats?
Thank you.
No, I didn't do that. I didn't call you. Because I just heard from Alan.
We're going to go ahead and get started with our raffle. Does everyone have a raffle ticket? There's people that don't have raffle tickets.
Do we have some that don't?
Is there hands up?
If you don't have a raffle ticket, can you raise your hand? What did you say?
Wants you to let him know so that you know. His card's right here.
Okay. You want to come over with the goodies?
All right, Denise.
We're going to go ahead with the raffle now. Oh, yes.
Ready? We'll go, let's go, Trading Spaces a free week, anywhere with Trading Places.
All right, so you all have your tickets and we're ready to go here? All right. So this is a free week for Trading Places.
And we'll do that one.
Oh, I need my glasses.
2555810. Yay! Pamela. All right.
Oh, Pam, you got it. Congratulations. Now I have my glasses on, I can see, brother.
All right. We'll do from Joe. Free week at
Okay.
Ocean Landings in Cocoa
This
Beach.
is from Joe Takis from MVP, and it's a free week in Florida, Ocean Landings Resort, Cocoa Beach.
And we'll do this one.
Okay. That would be, I can see much clearly now, 2555834. Uh-oh. There you go.
All right. We'll do this is free week from RCI, anywhere RCI is at.
All right, a free bonus week from RCI.
And we'll go with this one.
And the lucky one is 2555837. Okay.
All right, we'll do a free Capital Vacations goodie bag.
Okay.
Not free.
All right, now we're on to a Capital Vacations goodie bag. 2555766. Okay.
All right, we'll do a Barrier Island goodie bag. Barrier Island Station goodie bag.
Now we're going to have a Barrier Island Station goodie bag, and the lucky winner is 2555827. Okay.
Yeah, one of ours, yeah. We'll do another Capital, Denise.
All right. Another Capital goodie bag, 2555835.
Hey, Mr. Smith.
And this is our last one?
Well, when we got Rich's, we'll do that one, then we'll do Rich's. So got
Okay,
another
we had
Barrier
two more chances.
Another Barrier Island goodie bag.
All right, Barrier Island goodie bag goes to 2555817. Oh, there you go.
And then last is Rich's donated one of his original, not his original, but a reproduction of his original.
Okay.
And then I'll let you pick that one.
All right. And our secretary, Rich, not only an architect, but an artist, and he's donating one of his paintings to you, and that's going to be 2555751. 751. Oh, there you go. All right. So now we're going to go into Q&A. All right. All right, so now we're going to, congratulations to all the winners. And that what we're going to do now is open up the floor and go into Q&A. So if you have a question, just go to the middle of the floor and fire away.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say fire away. Might take that literal.
So I have some questions for Carmen. I don't know if this
Oh,
is
Mr.
live or
Evans,
not.
if you would, it's the microphone in the center of the.
Can you just go ahead, state your name and tell us what unit you own?
Okay, my name is Michelle Lynn, and I own Unit 417, Week 35. Okay, I submitted a question. You may have already resolved it, and please tell me, and then I will stop. But the question that I submitted was only partially written in this question and answer sheet, and it was on the interior of the unit, which I said that according to the August 2023 newsletter, the 400 building interior was completed. Well, when we walked into our unit, it was not completed. The only thing was the new flooring, which was very nice, the paint job, which was not so nice, but nothing else was done. When I went into the kitchen to use the stove, it was not even a flat top stove. It still had the old type with the burners, which weren't even flat. I put a pan on it with water figuring that it would hold down the burner. It spilt over. You know, so my question was, if you're telling me that the unit was complete and finished in the 400, why wasn't it? And is it, okay, I was there in the first week of September. Has it been completed, refurbished, et cetera, since then?
Miss Lynn, there's I'm not sure if you've seen it, but on the owner's webs page, there is a breakdown of what was in the scope of the renovation. So what is to be expected, what is to remain. And it's broken down from building 3, 5, and 4, everything we've done so far. And it'll break down what you expect to see when you show up and what you expect to see as far as what stays. Appliances didn't make that scope of work. Obviously cabinets, kitchens and baths, as we spoke about today. The majority of what was in that scope of work was floor trim, doors, paint, wall corrections, meaning any of the texture that had issues in the ceilings, and sofas and some lamps throughout. 417 had everything that was within the scope. I agree with you on the paint job. That's what we talked about earlier. 417 has not been corrected in painting yet. That's one of the ones in the 400 building that has not been done. But they'll go through and repaint the trim, the walls, any issues where cut-ins weren't done or not enough paint used. The cabinets will get resanded, reprimed, and painted. But far as appliances goes, we do replace appliances operationally. So there is in our operating budget. We're not going and doing mass amounts of appliances within our operating budget like a renovation would do, but we're doing as needed. But as far as your stove goes, I can put a work order in. So there's some items in the units, and we try to, not to try to explain that some of these things, like an owner will say, I checked in, my coffee maker didn't work. We don't brew coffee in your unit. And not to say that that's an excuse, but we don't go in, housekeeping cleans it, they put it up, we don't brew coffee. We have to rely on an owner to put a coffee pot on and say, wow, this thing's not brewing. And then we bring you a new coffee pot. Stove with a burner that's unlevel, between housekeeping and maintenance, they probably should have caught that. But I'll make sure there's a work order put in for somebody to go look at it. Actually, I think I already did, because you sent your email to me.
Yes.
A couple weeks ago. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, again, my biggest issue is that in the August bulletin, it should not have said the 400 building is complete. That's why we were just so disappointed when we walked in the front door.
Yes, ma'am.
So my question is for Carmen.
I think you clarified it, but complete, just so you understand, you never said, this, Ms. Lynn, maybe I misunderstood too, but can't hear you. Let me come up here. So I actually write the updates, and so I just want to make sure if there's any other additional clarification you want. We're not doing a complete kitchen and bath. That's not in the scope of what we're doing. So when we say it's complete, when Walter's talking about going to the website, and we can probably, well, it's too late, you have it down, but like I said, we could bring up the chart, or you can come over and see us, and we'll show you the chart. But we have a chart that shows you by unit type every single thing that's going into the upgrade. And the 400 has, in the kitchen, it's new cabinets. In the bathrooms where there was jacuzzis that need to be replaced, that will be something for the bathrooms. But we have not stated that we were doing new kitchens. We simply can't afford to do new kitchens. We love to do them. So it's complete in terms of the phase one. It probably says in there the phase one work is complete. And if you would go to the website, you'll see what it says for phase one. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
So my question is for Carmen. You point out that we, as an association, own about 10% of the units in the thing. And you also point out that in terms of foreclosures, we're not foreclosing on anything in the months through October through April because there's really no demand for that. But what's not clear to me is what are the 10% that we own? Are we owning winter units, or how many of the 10% that we own are summer units that are really rentable or saleable?
Yeah, good question. The bulk of what we own, frankly, pretty much mirror the distribution of units that you own out there. There's 5,865 intervals. The bulk of them are off-season weeks that we've acquired, not through foreclosure, but we had a settlement several years back with the developer that we received 161 units. Every one but 4 of those units were winter weeks that the developer owned. The 4 that were not winter weeks were cold shoulder season weeks, springtime, fall. So there was 161 that came into the inventory that in settlement of an obligation she owed us, but they're there, but that's the mix. So they're old. A lot of the deed backs we get, when we process deed backs, the bulk of the deed backs are for owners who own winter weeks that can't figure out how to sell them, or they can't sell them. So that adds to the inventory. The foreclosures cost us $1,200 to $1,400 per interval to foreclose, and it takes 8 to 12 months under North Carolina law to do that. So we're not going to spend $1,200, $1,400 on a unit that we can't rent or we can't sell. We're essentially in the same boat as many owners. We're trying to figure out what to do with these weeks. So wherever we can get a summer week that helps change this balance, we do. And all those, even the winter weeks are in the rental pool, but doesn't mean that they rent. But our summer weeks that we own, we rent, and shoulder weeks have rental demand. And then also we have RCI exchangers coming in to take some of those weeks.
How successful are we in renting the summer weeks? Do any of them go unrented, or are we able to rent substantially all that we own?
I'd have to frankly defer to the VRI guys, because that, VRI handles that. I think our rental program is successful. If I look at just the numbers, which I can examine, the best rental year we ever had was 2021, I'm sorry, after COVID and things opened up, when people still could not travel internationally, so you could go out here, but you couldn't go abroad. Our rental income that year was $220,000 to the association. This year, I think we'll probably close to $200,000, because what we saw was when all COVID restrictions for international travel were lifted, rentals went down. People went elsewhere. They were able to go to Europe or Asia or wherever else they wanted to go. They didn't have to stay domestically. So once people were able to fly, rental demand, and this is not just us, this is timeshare in general, rental demand dropped a little bit. But that's what we're making in terms of that. We'll rent anything that we could rent. If there's a demand for it, it'll rent. And VRI has an aggressive rental program. It operates similar to hotels and airlines and Amtrak. You go on today, the rate is X. You go a week from now, the rate is more or less based upon how close you are to getting that. So the prices are dynamic, but they try to rent anything they can. Hope that answers your question. But.
Right, and I assume that all the weeks that we own are available for sale. Is there any market for that? Is there any demand for buying any of our weeks?
Well, we have no better or worse demand than any other owner has in terms of the weeks. So we have all the week 4s that you want, okay? No one wants them. So summer weeks, we have not been selling summer weeks, frankly, because of what might be coming with what I talked about here, where we may want to reserve those weeks for owners that if we repurpose a building and an owner is displaced from that building but wants to remain an owner, then we like to try to have some place to put them, give them an option for a unit here.
That makes sense. It seems wise.
That's the best way we have to take care of our owners.
Okay, last quick questions. In the budget variance, the budget this year for 2023 for legal was significantly higher than was budgeted, or the expenditures were significantly higher. Was that because of foreclosures or for some other legal reason?
Are you thinking 23 to 24?
I'm thinking of 23.
Within 23?
Yeah,
Let me just
within
check
23.
the numbers real quickly. It probably was because of foreclosures.
And the budget for utilities for 24 is less than the amount spent for 23. Do we really expect our utility costs to go down?
That is the improvement in the IT environment that is largely driving that. Our IT costs are going down because of the improvements we made. So it's not that electricity and water are going down. It's other things that has gone down.
So
We've saved
IT
money.
expenses are budgeted under utilities.
Yes, correct,
Okay.
correct.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Yep, you're welcome. In terms of your question on
On the legal.
The
legal
legal fees.
65 forecast budget, yeah, that was driven largely by two things. A little bit more on foreclosures than we thought we spent, and also some preliminary legal work on what we're looking at in reviewing documents for what might be coming up with repurposing. So we have to do our own homework on that, and that requires hired legal support.
Thank you for the explanation.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question that tags on what he asked, that was just kind of a follow-up about the rentals?
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody that's very delinquent, but y'all don't own, are we able to rent those?
We rent those.
Okay.
The difference we do, I mean, we keep the money but we credit the delinquent owner for that value. We're legally required to do that. So we reduce their obligation to the association, but we keep the money, yes. So, but the reality is there aren't a lot of delinquent owners in the prime weeks because the owner can do what we're trying to do. They can either sell them or rent them. Rent them frequently for more than the maintenance fee. But that's, we do try. They're in the rental pool as well. Those delinquent owners are not allowed to use their unit. They're not allowed to use the value of their unit somewhere else.
Hi, I'm Robin Matthews. My husband and I own 3 weeks, 2 in 605 and 1 in 505, 305, anyway. So my question is, on the repurposing, a couple of questions. Is the property itself maxed out on the amount of buildings that can be built? And I guess partially that question related to the fact we had to scale back, and so we obviously must be paying rent for the check-in facilities. Is there an alternative to that? Could we buy a prefab building or something else to put on part of the site somewhere to accommodate the check-in thing? And I guess the question is, we're talking about converting units to condos. Is there any free land to just build condos as opposed to, you know, taking existing buildings and trying to work through the complicated ownership process?
Right. I'll use the microphone. I'm an infantry officer. I typically don't need a microphone, but I will use it to project here. Your first question, Robin, and want to make sure I get them correct. This first one, just to restate it very quickly, was?
Could we had to give up the check-in ability for our big building?
Yeah, the check-in building that we use, we do not own that. That is rented. We rent that from a landlord. We never owned that. The original developer, as the way that the ground was configured, owned it, but it was never conveyed to us. So that was one of the reasons we were looking to add that space into the recreation center, that we could give up that building. Now, the rent there is not exceptionally high, so it's $1,600 a month or some such thing as that for our expenses. We will have a decision to make by December 31st of next year, or the landlord will, because that's when our lease expires. And, you know, we've kicked around a couple options. Well, the recreation center was an option. If we had to default, we could put an office trailer somewhere for temporary space, or we could look to build a building of some sort. Looking at what we just went through with the recreation center, that would be a painful process, I would say. But that is the reality we face. At this moment with the landlord, we don't see any signs that they will not want us to continue. It's possible that they will. We have good relations with them, but we don't know. But the fallback would probably be some type of a temporary office trailer while we could figure out what's going on. Regarding density, I think your second question.
Right.
Old rules, new rules, the Wild West days versus today. Duck, which now was not a town, if you remember, when this place was built. This was just their county. Duck has a density limit of 6 units per acre on new construction. So we are limited by that. We're limited by our septic capacity, how many toilets we're allowed to have, basically, with our septic fields. And when you see open space on our grounds, most of that is not buildable. You know, you can't certainly build on top of a septic field. And we have several septic fields. It's not just the big one on the right when you come into the property. So there is really no available land that we could just erect a brand-new building on unused space. That does not exist on our property. If we wanted to build something new, we would have to take down something old. And that's, a developer could do something such as that. You know, we're trying to look at repurposing what's there right now, but we are more or less locked in to the footprint that we have in terms of number of units. So.
Okay.
Carmen, there was one part of that I could add is the rec center originally had the office. It had to be scaled back. But one thing we did do is the rec center is built to be able to have an addition put onto
That's right.
it. The electrical infrastructure is in place in the rec center, and the stormwater system is built big enough to accommodate the addition. So if there is an addition put in, the big ticket items are already taken care of.
That's true.
So it'll allow you to build it. And we have a set of plans that essentially turns that building from a rectangle to an L, a small L.
Hi, on the repurposing project, can you tell us who the bidders are or what type of companies they are?
I cannot share you. Oh.
Could you just tell us your name and what
Oh,
you
sorry.
Lori Smith, 414.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't disclose the bidders at this point in time because we have non-disclosure agreements with them.
Okay.
So if it fails, they don't want to be labeled a loser, if you will. There are three firms that we're evaluating. Two of them have extensive experience in repurposing, specifically repurposing timeshares. The other is a developer who has extensive experience in construction and renovations and things, but doesn't have timeshare experience. All three have been given the same amount of information. They've been given our declarations. They've been given our delinquency lists in terms of not names, but just what we have. They know our situation. They know what we want. They're doing their diligence on us as we are doing diligence on them. And they are undertaking legal reviews also to determine what flexibility they have in participating with us. As I say, the repurposing, even taking an existing building and converting it from interval ownership to whole ownership, is a laborious process and governed by both, not just our documents, but North Carolina law. So there's a lot of legal work that has to be done. We think what we've been quoted would be, repurposing would be probably about a 30-month plus or minus 6-month process. The first 12 of those months would easily, you wouldn't see anything happening because it would be all of this background information that would have to be investigated, courses of action determined. The challenge we have is we have to pick somebody before any of them will really do that level of work. So we're trying to narrow it down to the partner that we think will work best for us, and then turn it over to them. And to some extent, we're relying on their experience in doing this, their experience not just in broad terms, but their experience in North Carolina, because different states have different rules and different laws about how these things would work. So that's what we're into right now.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Margie Ferguson, owner of a couple, we'll say 71532. First of all, our delinquent units, who's actually trying to track down those folks? Are we paying legal people to do that, or are you guys doing that? Who's doing that?
If you think about the ABC policy that is included with your annual maintenance fee statement, once you get past a certain date of being delinquent, it's referred to a professional debt collection agency. Under federal law, you cannot have two people work a debt account. So once we turn it over to a collection agency, we are essentially out of it. We can't make calls to that owner. If that owner calls us, we don't take that call. It's referred to the debt collection agency. They are actively working it. I think, I could be off a little bit on my numbers, but I believe last year we recovered $300,000 or something in this range. I'd have to really check that, of delinquent owners' accounts that the monies came back to us. In some cases, we take the deed back. That's part of the settlement.
Just a simple deed in lieu instead of the whole foreclosure thing?
Correct, yeah. Part of the settlement may be, we'll get X number of dollars and a deed, and that goes into our ownership pool. In other cases, the owner just is brought current and hopefully will stay current, and they have their privileges restored.
Okay. And before we actually turn them over to the debt collector, who in-house actually makes attempts at contacting and being kind and fuzzy and warm to get this money back from them?
I'll turn it to my VRI counterparts. I don't know the name of the department, but there is a department at VRI that handles this.
We do. So
Yeah.
a couple different avenues are taken. So we send out multiple bills. Then we have a team that starts to make calls, and then a lot of times the resort staff will make collection calls too, to give owners as many chances as possible to pay before they go to that third-party collections. So we have a dedicated customer service.
And what part of that are you successful with?
I don't have exact numbers, but a lot of times, you get a pretty good success rate, because basically you're saying at this point, this is our last ditch to try to reach out to you, multiple notices. After this, it's going to go to third-party collections, which is going to tack on a hefty fee.
And part of mine is I talked to several, I'm here a lot, I talked to several owners over the summer who, actually they were grandkids who were in grandma's unit. And grandma got in arrears and didn't even know she was in arrears. And they were trying to sort of tidy things up, and and get out of arrears and decide who was gonna keep the unit, who wasn't, kind of stuff. And once that gets to a debt collector, that's why I was asking who's doing that on the warm and fuzzy side, because once that gets to a debt collector, that's not gonna process with those kind of people. And I do think we have a significant amount of people at this resort who are either just totally aged out and are still alive, or probably some that are just dead and nobody knows what to do with it. So I'm just wondering if there's a warmer and fuzzier way that, and that's not an extra fee from you guys, that's included in your
Yeah.
management fee?
Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, we get people on the phone that will pay, but then you also get a lot of people too that, you know, unless it's a Barrier Island number popping up, they might not answer the phone.
Yeah.
Return the call, or maybe they're having financial difficulty and they're scared.
Yeah, and they don't
and
know
it
they can work
happens.
out a payment plan,
Yep.
stuff like that, yeah. 'Cause I didn't-
Typically, we call in-house
So it's
first
Ally or
year
somebody calls you.
delinquents. You know, if you owe us $12,000, there's a good chance you're not answering anybody's phone call. First year delinquents, our office calls.
Okay.
This first year you went delinquent. Because what we don't want to happen is you show up July 4th and expect to check in your unit, and we rented your unit months ago. And it does happen.
Yeah.
And so, one is it's a courtesy call to say, hey, look, we noticed that you've never had this problem before, this is what's going on. And two, it keeps that from happening
So there is
months
an
later.
in-house warm and fuzzy
Yeah,
kind of
there's,
thing?
but we only do the first year delinquents.
Okay.
If they're 3-4 years delinquent, they're already in the collections, or with the collections company.
All right, other questions. Structural issues. Do we have to wait for the repurposing stuff to go through before we start with the Quest pipe replacement? Or are we gonna do that sooner? Like, do we have the money to start with the Quest pipe replacement, and are we doing a little bit of that in-house now as units fail? Again, personal experience, I was here for 8 weeks this year, and my husband and I walk a lot, and we frequently see a lot of things under repair that appear to be leaks that have happened, and we're seeing drywall getting chunked out the doors and windows, and I know which ones are insurance claims, but I think we've had a lot of leaks on property. Are we just kind of fixing those, or as the bad Quest thing comes up, I have an interest in the 700 building because that's my main 7 week. It's also where Denise owns, by the way. Anyway, so I stopped and asked when I saw them playing around over there this week, and it had a big leak. So are we just patching these leaks, or are we, as the units fail, the big leaks happen, we're just kind of, what are we doing? I don't know how to ask that question differently.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of take a stab at it. As a mass repair, which we know needs to happen.
Yeah.
That's what we're working on now, as a mass repair. The questions that we've talked about is, does it make sense, because it's an invasive
It is.
process,
Yeah, you
very
gotta tear
invasive
stuff out.
process. Do we go cut out drywall and redo plumbing, and say, use building 700? We're
Yeah.
not ready to renovate or refurbish it.
Right.
Do we go and cut out walls and do all the plumbing repairs, and then patch the walls and paint them back the color that we don't want there, with the trim that we don't want
Or do
there?
we wait?
Or do we wait and do it all at one time, we pay for it once? What we did in building 300, we wanted to do tests to see how invasive this is. We did it backwards, right? We renovated building 300,
And then we
it
go.
looked great, and then said, hey, let's do this as a test unit, let's go cut our brand new walls open, and we did. And so that's the process, is we have 1.2 million in the bank. It cost $900,000 to do. So you could go in and technically do them all, but then you're gonna go back a year later and cut it all back out and do it all over again. So the way that we've handled it is, there is, like you noticed in 17, 16, it was a leak between the floor of
Right.
17 and 18.
Yeah, last summer, yeah.
Granted, right now, we're still busy. The property's still holding about 50% occupancy, so there's people there, which is awesome, because a leak pops up, they pick up the phone, we're there quick, shut the water off, we repair it. The downfall, which happens in 318, is in January, when there's no one in the unit and it leaks, and it doesn't show up until we find it somehow, or what, and we do, and Mark's team that's here, his team does unit walkthroughs in the winter, once a week, just to make sure that there's nothing weird going on if the unit's unoccupied. But again, that's once a week, so it leaves the capability. So as they pop now, we're fixing them and repairing. Our guys are pretty good. Johnny on the spot. Dehumidifiers go in. You've got about a 30-hour window with gray water that sits. But to answer your question, as a whole, that's what we're working on now, is what part of that do we grab now, and what part do we wait and say, does it make sense to do it all? And if we're gonna cut walls open and have to patch them and retexture them, everything in Barrier Island, roofs, our ceilings and walls, and every room in that place has texture on it. There's no flat walls in Barrier Island, so everywhere you cut a wall open, you've got to go in and try to reblend texture, and it's not as easy a repair as, like, most modern homes are a flat wall. So actually, like, right now, we're reactive. If it becomes bigger a problem, then that's when we involve restoration and insurance.
My other question also leads to property damage and water. So the roofs in the 800 building, I think it's kind of common knowledge that if the master bedroom and some of those upper 800 units where the door out of the master bedroom, every time I stay in one of those, I look up and there's a cutout hole in the ceiling and a patch up there. And it's pretty, like I'm staying in one right now. It's dry, but you can see the saggy drywall hanging out of the ceiling and on the wall. And somebody's punched a hole up in it so to see if it's dry because they stuck their finger up in it. There's a known leak in that section. Is that going to be encompassed in the renovation? It's a structural issue where the eaves come together in 800. If you go in the master bedrooms, there's an outside door that nobody uses. And traditionally, and I have mold allergies, so that's a bone of contention with me. But structurally, I see this repaired every time we stay in the 800 building. We just must get lucky, but there's a little hole in the ceiling where it's been repaired, or it's been repaired and it's saggy again because it has a repeated leak.
That's part, if you saw one of the things I said, we've actually hired them to do roof evaluations for us, to be able to go through and show us what's going on, where we've found some, I'm not a roofer, but there's some issues in some of the valleys where they're not overlapped correctly.
Yeah, they didn't overlap the stuff when they did the.
So we've hired them to come through and shoot all our roofs for us.
I'm not sure it'll show on a roof shoot, but it might. I think it's an underlying thing, but I just know that what units leak in 800 where that door is in the master bedroom.
Yeah, well, you and I might have to touch base.
We'll walk around on that, yeah. Let me see. So I asked, sort of off the cuff, but just, so the 1.5 million was geared toward repurposing just one building. And are we just gonna kind of ask to double that if we do two? And my question is, are they gonna be allowed to submit their bills? So 5 is, in my mind, and this is just how my weird mind works, but in my mind, 1 and 5 would make sense because of proximity and where they are in the resort. But so 5 is renovated, are we gonna charge the same money for 5 or ask the same money for 5 as we would for 1? And how does that work? It just depends on what they offer us.
Margie, when you say ask the same money.
We're not asking, it's what they offer us, yeah.
I see what you're saying. The concept that we're trying to push here is a front-end payment to us and then a back-end distribution. Any of the buildings that already have had work done may reduce the renovation costs. These proposers would all do some form of renovation into the units. If it's a building, then let's just take 500, well, any of the 3, 4, or 5. They've already had work done. If that work is in keeping with their design plan, because at this point in time, it is now their building. You know, we're out of it at that point. You know, we've already turned this over to them. If they could lower their costs, that's more money we will make on the back end. You know, so if they could accept, hypothetically, if they accept our floors, you know, the new vinyl flooring that's in there, the new treads, the steps that have tread steps that have gone up. If they accept that, that's less money that they will spend, more money that will be available at the back end for distribution. Doesn't affect the front end. But that's probably, I mean, we'll consult with them, but that's going to be their call. If they wanted to gut it down to the studs and redo it, some of that is going to be determined, I think, by what they think they could get on a selling price. The more you put into it, the more you should get or might get, but it's not necessarily guaranteed. So they're going to have this balance also in terms of what they think they can get for the property, what they're willing to spend on the property, how much will be made on the property at the back end.
Let's see what other questions I had. And this is kind of a personal thing, but we've stayed here a long time. How do we refurbish what, Walter mentioned that he's going to try to make the units standardized, in terms of what's, I'm totally switching topics on you here. What's in the units? They take the kitchen, we're gonna get this many silverware, this many cups, plates, all that kind of stuff. How do we, when that's all done, will we have an adequate supply of leftovers to replace what is not in the unit? Do we stock extras, or will we buy just for unit
So the
consumption?
unit setup goes by sleeps, how
Right.
many the unit sleeps.
Right.
And then housekeeping keeps a stock, a heavy stock of backup to everything. The way it works right now, they've got a backup to 20 different style plates.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different
Except for the one
items.
you're probably looking for. that
Except for
way.
the one you're looking for. So the process, like we've started in building 500. Everything in building 500 is not bad, right? It doesn't match. So there's 6 plates. This 503's got 6 plates in them. 4 of them are the current plates that we use. 2 of them are ones that have been here since when. So the 2 that we don't want go in the trash.
Okay.
The 4 that are good go back into stock, and then 6 new matching ones go in place. Yeah, so
Right.
we're going through everything. I pulled out, I call it grandma's casserole dish, but the white stuff with the little blue that's everybody had in the
Right,
80s.
yeah.
We found those in units. That doesn't, I mean, that's something somebody brought and just stuck up on a shelf, and so that stuff all comes out, and there's a standardization of, if you're in 715 or 505, you should have the same Pyrex dishes, the same frying pan, the same dishware.
Do we get a vote on that, by the way? I'm not serious. I can tell you what I want in mine.
Well,
So good, thanks. All right. So,
whatever the budget.
so my other question has to do with appliances and how we stock parts for them. And sometimes I think we have several different brands of appliances, refrigerators and stoves. And when something goes down and it's, I'll give an example. So in the summer, I went into a unit and I didn't have door bars for my refrigerator. And your maintenance staff is awesome. They went to everywhere they could try and pilfer me one from, and there weren't any on property to have. So I Amazoned them.
Yeah.
And left them as a gift. All right. But when we buy a certain brand of appliance, or do we have a big enough presence to have a contract that this is what we're gonna do, and we stock X amount of replacement parts, or have we just gone through them all?
So just like dishes, there's multitude of brands and styles across the property. We've standardized what we buy. Just even all the way down to your coffee maker, we've standardized now. It's a Black & Decker. We don't buy anything
By
else.
the way, the toaster's very nice too.
So it's standardized. Typically, if you have the funds, the easy way to do it is say, look, we're going and buying a 176 this and swap it through. Obviously, we don't have the funds to do that. So we've standardized the brand all the way. Most everything's standardized now, from the ceiling fan to a fork. But we're cycling through as it's needed. So you're, a good example for us, like the way we operate, middle of summer, your dishwasher goes down. It could just be a part, could be a thermostat. We pull it out, we put a new one in, that goes in the shop. We order a thermostat, we repair it, and now it goes back into stock. You don't have any downtime without a dishwasher. We're not sitting up there with you watching us trying to figure out how to fix it. And we've cycled it now.
All right, so stuff that's pulled out that we see you hauling out because it's a minor part is going somewhere in the shop to get
It's going, yeah,
fixed.
if you go in the shop now, they'll see there's a couple dryers lined
Okay.
up, washers, and
All right.
they'll work on
That was my
it.
question, because I was afraid I was seeing stuff taken out that probably my son could fix for me.
No, they're not
Yeah.
disposable. No,
Okay.
no,
All
the
right,
old,
that
now,
was my question.
the things that, I will tell you, like, a coffee maker is disposable. We take the carafe and we throw the coffee maker. There's a limit on those
So we have a
things.
mechanism. That
And
was,
then there's some items that's, the stoves have rust spots all over them. Is it worth going in and putting a $200 part on a $600 stove that's rusted? Probably not. And we allow our maintenance manager to make those determinations.
okay. So maintenance has a budget that they can go and purchase what they need if they need something locally.
They do. And we we own most of the garages under the building 200, and one of them is appliance garage. And you can open it up, and there's typically 2 of everything, sometimes 3 of everything in there. 3 washers, 3 dryers, 3 dishwashers, and that's our par level that we keep. So that in the summer, if you need something, you don't have downtime. We lug a refrigerator up, take yours down.
Okay, that was my question, because I see a lot of stuff getting lugged in and lugged out. I'm like,
Yep.
And maintenance does have the ability, or housekeeping, whoever, if we don't have it in stock and it's in prime season and we need stuff,
We
they
keep
have
an
an
inventory.
account, say at Home Depot or somewhere they can go and use, or how do we do that?
So
Or
we
do you
try
sign
not
off
to.
on
So
that?
that's how you end up with mixed stuff. We're in the
Yeah.
Outer Banks. We're in the
Right.
middle, we're like no man's land, right?
Yeah, how
So,
do we deal with that?
and we're one resort of thousands of rental homes, and they're all running to go buy pillows, and so we try to combat that with keeping par levels of all these items. Because what happens is if when you do go run to Kellogg's and say, oh my God, I need a toaster, or oh my God, I need this, you're buying the wrong brand. We're not, you're messing the whole standardization system up. And so we try to make sure our par levels are, coffee makers are 8. If you get below 8 coffee makers in stock, you let me know, and that's what I do, and I order and make sure you have those levels.
Okay.
Housekeeping has a spreadsheet of everything that's in our units, and once a month they deliver to me what they've used. So, coffee makers is one. 8 par, we use 3, Walt order 3 of us for them. And so it keeps our par levels to where they're supposed to be. Now, in the middle of summer, that doesn't say that we just had a run on coffee makers and now we're scrambling, but we're not Target either, so we can't keep 50 of them in stock.
All right, thank you, Margie. Anyone else have questions?
Hello, Faye DiGiovanni. I have a
No
question.
relation, by the way. No relation. Just a coincidence of last names.
I have a question regarding towels and on the A side of a unit, can you tell me what kind of how many of each towel are supposed to be supplied?
Layout is, yeah, but it's not 4 hand towels and not 4, it's 2 per bath, 1 hand, 1 washcloth.
So, I mean, frankly, these.
I'm this is off the top of my head, but
All right. The towels are, as far as I'm concerned, the towels are pretty poor in terms of the place we stayed in Williamsburg this week had better towels. I mean, if all you're supplying is basically 1 washcloth, 1 hand towel, and 1 bath towel per person, I mean, you're requiring then people to have to launder the towels. That's not going to last for a week. Or am I not understanding something?
No, ma'am. No. I'm listening to you. Yes, ma'am.
What do you want to?
Either you should
address the question?
I didn't know it was more of a statement.
Either you should supply better towels or give us more towels.
Well, so Faye, as you know, and I'll just use this as an example, you pay a lot more money for a maintenance fee at the Marriott than for here. And I know, but you just said where you stayed, even at the other place, right? So we should have quality towels, and I agree with that. I'm just pointing out the fact that we can look at, and we've discussed the towels, Walter, maybe you could look at the quality of the towels and see. But we don't have enough towels in the unit in order for you not to wash them. The washer is there, and unfortunately, you get 1 towel per person to use, and when they get dirty, you have to put them in the washing machine. That's how basically every place is. Some resorts allow you what they call a midweek swap, where you might be able to go and do that. But we're just not equipped as a resort to do it, but it's a good suggestion.
One thing that I've seen in other resorts, and I'm okay with the towels, but what you can, and at some other resorts, they'll have a thing with housekeeping. If you want extra towels in your unit, you go up and you pay to have, say you
Do a
only
towel
want
swap.
Yeah, you can do a towel
not
swap.
either. You do a towel
Right.
swap where you say, hey, I just want extra towels. We're gonna take 2 showers a day and not recycle our towels, but you just go down and you pay them to have extra towels in your unit. It also cuts down on when they rip them off.
And housekeeping's pretty lenient, so they don't charge. If you need extra towels, they'll bring them to you. It's just they don't stock it across 176 units. We've looked at it, adding extra towels. We've looked at adding pool towels. We've looked at all different scenarios that the cost was pretty high. The one thing that we have talked about, and it may make sense, and actually I've got a proposal that we haven't talked about yet, was adding washing detergent. You know, if we are expecting you to wash your towels, should we provide detergent to get you started? Just as we, provide this or that to get you started. That's the only option we haven't looked at. Yeah.
Yeah, it's another, some places do offer that. Some places do offer that, but oftentimes it's really not the best detergent, and most people like to use their own. That's just, I see some of the head shakes too, and the allergies and stuff.
My name is Cheryl Patterson, and we own 2 units, 801 and 811. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge all of hard work that the board and the owners and BRI have done, everything possible to try and make this to work, and we really appreciate it, and I think you should be acknowledged. Especially, Walter, when you said that the staff has pitched in, and look at the money you saved as a result, and we thank you for that. We really do. And Carmen, all the time and the effort that you put in to make this budget come together and work, it's amazing. I'm glad you're the mathematician.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Okay.
Cheryl's my speechwriter.
I'm sorry? All right, I do have a question. I noticed that during the presentation, there was talk of buildings 5 through 7 with no mention really of anything about 100. What is the status of the building 100? Renovations, possibly taking it down, or would it be a part of the repurposing? Is there any plan for anything particular to be done with that one, since that's the oldest one?
I'll take the renovation portion of the question.
Okay.
When we put together the timeline of renovations, it was building by building, and it was done in timestamp order. And Building 100 is the oldest building on property, but it is the newest building to the Timeshare Association. So it was the first one built, but it was the last one to become a timeshare.
Why is that?
I don't have the complete history, but it was a whole owned unit.
Oh.
Just like 200 was.
Oh, I got
and
it.
was
Okay.
later converted to timeshare.
Got it.
So
Okay.
even though it's the oldest one, it is the newest one to this association. And
Okay.
so we went through, and that's why you'll see 800 is second to last, because that's the last,
Right.
really the last one, new construction. And then Building 100 came on to the association. So that's why it ended up at the
At
a
the
lot of
end.
people say it's the oldest and you don't care about it, but really it was because it's the newest to the association.
I wasn't aware of that. Okay.
And
Thank you.
If I believe, and I think the board has mentioned it before, when it switched from whole owned to timeshare, it actually got a renovation at that time too.
Oh.
In the 80s.
Okay. Didn't know
Right.
that.
It was the last, it came back around, when they sold everything out, they went back to the 100. The owners were agreeable, with the exception of one, to want to go and convert to timeshare, so that's what they did. So I know most people think it's it's the last building to be moved into
Incorporated.
timeshare, but it was one of the first buildings to be built.
Okay, that clarifies
And that's why
that.
there's always that confusion.
Okay, I have a question for Walter. When you talked about the horrific event that you had to go through with the rec building and the pool, and the inspection by the state, having to tear up everything, did it cost us more money because we had to tear up and put it back?
Fortunately, no. So we're under contract that our price is our price. And
Okay.
so unless it's an unforeseen, like the retaining wall was an unforeseen that we have contingency for. But any of these delays have not cost, other than time, and the
Oh,
time
yeah.
is valuable.
It's a
Other
huge
than
time.
time, it has not cost us anything.
Okay, well, that's really good news.
Cheryl, also on that matter with the pool,
Okay.
the concrete shell of the pool, if you want to think of it, that was not destroyed and dug up.
Okay.
It was the sand around it that
Okay.
had to be excavated to expose the pipes so
Okay.
that the health departments could inspect that.
All right.
And now that sand has to be put back.
Okay.
So, but the structure of the pool is absolutely fine. It was not redone, does not
Okay,
have to be redone.
I misunderstood. Okay, so that's not as bad as we thought, or as I thought. That's a great idea, too, about the possible addition to the rec building and the L, and maybe to move the rental office,
It's
second
already
office?
been preliminarily designed by
Right.
me and the architect.
And so the state wouldn't have to be involved with another
Well,
inspection?
no, we would have to go through a permit process.
Right.
For that, but in other words, the design is pretty much ready to go.
Uh-huh.
And they just need to finish the architectural and engineering drawings for it, so that it can be run through permit and contractor pricing. So,
Okay.
In other words, it's been thought through.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So when the city did the inspection of the pool, wouldn't the next logical step be the state should have been notified, or?
Typically, the state's not involved, it's a county level.
Okay.
So the town's not even involved. County Health Department does
County,
commercial
okay.
pools. Residential pools, that's a residential pool is town involvement.
Okay.
Commercial pool is county health department. But evidently, they've had issues with a couple commercial pools in the Outer Banks. These things, because of the water table, they have these hydrostatic valves that basically keeps the pool from shooting out of the ground from the pressure.
Okay.
And so they wanted to review all the plumbing and all of the drains, which had the hydrostatic valves. And so the state got involved and wanted to come down and actually review all of that, but they also made us take the drains out, and they actually watched them be reinstalled.
Right, okay.
So it's not a normal part of the process.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so that was part of that hiccup, okay.
When do we get a water test on that?
On the, when it's done?
When it's filled and is it legal?
You don't get your CO until the health department, and that's the Dare County Health Department. Same process we use for the outdoor pool. Every year, the Dare County comes, tests our water at the outdoor pool, checks the lights, checks the gates, the normal process, and says you can open the pool. It will be the same for this when we call for it. So it'll be in January, they'll come test the water, they'll come and test the flow, make sure that the flow is correct, the flow to sanitize the pool. They check the lights, they check the locks, they check everything, and then they give us our CO.
Okay, and my last question has related to the budget and the overrides, which are understood because the budget and pandemic and supply chain and all that became an issue. So because of the interior upgrades not necessarily being covered any longer because of the cost incurred, I should say, we had to downsize what was being done in the interiors, and I think everybody understands that, right? I think that's where a lot of the complaining has come from, is the fact that people don't get it. And I wish that more people paid attention and read the things that are sent out and the transparency that you've provided, because they would answer a lot of the questions or things that are popping up in the comments when people are not engaged. And that needs to be questioned, I think, more than anything else. So because of that, that's why we were able to use some of the money to downsize the rec center budget, because we still wanted to be able to go ahead and do that building, but that's why we had to cut out not moving the rental office to that location and not completing what we originally thought we could have all of the interiors done. Isn't that correct? Isn't that why?
Well, we took two large projects and we did them simultaneously.
Okay.
And so, as you go through, you pick the rec center, and as Carmen said, it's 176% over what we had hoped it would cost.
Right.
You incur those costs as you're going through those processes.
Right.
And, had we taken on, let's do renovations, and then when we're done with this, spent this money, then let's go and do the rec center, then we would have had to raise the funds to make the difference.
Right.
We shot both of them at the same time.
Okay.
And so it ended up with basically which one gets done first, and the rec centers being it and being over budget. So it sucked some of the funds to go to the rec center.
Right. All right. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Hi, Norma Fleming. I actually have unit 704, A and B. I'm going to probably jump around because I kind of took notes as I went and then had questions later with myself, and then some got answered.
Maybe could you move up to the microphone?
Is that good? Can you hear me now? No, I don't have Verizon. The first thing was the rental office. my first question was, well, could we update it some? But then when I found out later during conversations that it's not owned by us, why would we update something we don't own? And then it was like, maybe move it to the rec center. That's all the way into the middle of our development. So you want people that are just coming in all the way in. And I thought, well, yes, we had issues with the state and all their inspections, but they're, had we thought about like getting a tiny house? Because it's just for check-ins, that's on wheels, not something that's structure that says it has to sit on the ground, but you could theoretically move it, but it's stable and it's right there. I know they do it all over the place now, and I've seen it where they build a house. It's just, made for 2 or 3 people, and they sit in, and it's for check-ins. You don't need the beds and the lofts and everything that everybody's going to sleep in, but they're made to be efficient. You can get them stable in-ground, or you can build them, 800 to 1,200 square feet, and they're literally on a trailer, but it's something that, the state says is mobile, even though you don't mobily move it unless, dire emergency. But they have those, so we don't have to have all those permits. We just need a permit to park a structure and use that. And we have space in the front of the development that we could theoretically park a trailer, or we could park it where we park our trailers and our ski-doos and everything else. And it's not so far in to get there. And, yes, you can make outdoor plumbing on it. You could put plumbing into it if you need to, and you can hook it up to whatever if we had to. But that would be cheaper than trying to put an architect structure into something that we now have to get approved by the state and the counties, and everybody has to put in their 2 cents, and it costs an arm and a leg to build, where we could spend under $100,000 to get a house. And you have your you can get them made any way you want. And that's actually the new wave of technology for today is tiny houses. It's people downsizing. And they're using it for their businesses because they can move their business. They just hook it onto their dolly and haul butt. But so that was another way of doing it, instead of having them to drive all the way into our development, which then, when I first came there, I've been in Barrier Island since the 90s, early 90s, and I took it over from my parents. And I've been coming down every year except the year of COVID. So I have, seen the changes, and I have seen the downgrade of it. And I have talked to homeowners that are there. And my week is week 14, which is in April, which is when I first started coming. Easter wasn't around then. It was another week or 2 away, and there was nothing open around here. So you really didn't find much. But, and I'm not a fisherman. They would be like, do you fish? No, I just like the area. And I appreciate the fact that when we get hit by hurricanes, ours isn't as damaged as much, which is good. Because I have 2 units south in South Carolina. Guess what? We're not so lucky. They get flooded. But that's okay. You expect that. Just like I expect here in the salt air, and I've seen it, we will have damage. Our HVAC will not last because of the salt air. It damages everything. It not just damages our HVAC, it'll damage my equipment, everything. Right. So I know we need to get on a rotation on that. But it was just, and I had gotten really disappointed in Barrier Island. No offense. It was just getting really bad. I have unit 704. That 700 building has been through, I swear, 5 world wars. One year I came down like it was 2018 or 2019, and and you knew we were coming. Well, guess what? The night before we came, the ceiling collapsed because y'all had a flood. Which leads me to the structural of that. And I realize now it's probably because of the Quest pipes that we have in there that are causing all that damage. Or whatever they are. The question is, why was the flooring never changed? The flooring was never fixed in that unit. Do you know, from the day I stepped in there in 900, and I will get to my question when I get to it. But the question is, why is the kitchen still indented? Where you step, it still wobbles. When you go to the bathroom, right off to the kitchen, the toilet still sinks. Whoop, whoop, whoop. We ain't talking like. And then if you go downstairs into the master bedroom bathroom, that toilet is it's like weird. Nothing ever structural on that the ceiling looks great because it keeps collapsing, but the floors are not getting fixed.
So what is the unit number you're?
704, A and B.
Right, so I think just.
Yeah.
The question as far as that, have you reported this information? to
Yes,
property
I've reported so many times, I just basically gave up on y'all. I was ready to almost give up this unit. But I've still decided to keep it. But yes, and that's why partially, this is the first time I've come to the meeting.
Right.
Because I'm like, okay, maybe I need to say something more again and step up and be a part of it. And if I still don't like it, then I can sell it. But right now, I love coming. And I plan to be here next April.
And so I would say we appreciate your support and all of the years that you've been here, and I would just ask you that if you have this many issues with that we have time after this, that you go over and speak to Walter directly about how you might, what else is in the plan for that particular unit.
Okay.
And your suggestion is, I've already notated your suggestion about the tiny house, and I thank you for giving us that. Did you have anything else?
Yes.
That you wanted to address?
I do. Because when I first came here in the 90s, we didn't know how to get around the place. The security officer that checked us in that night, because it was dark, drove us close to the little shack, which is great. Y'all updated that. It doesn't smell like smoke so much. Oh, my God. But anyways, he drove us to our unit.
Yes.
And I've been down there with people, and they're like, there was a couple that couldn't find their unit. And then they couldn't figure out how to get out. And I'm thinking, it's not really that hard. You drive in circles enough, you eventually can get out. But still, it's an older couple. Is there a way that somebody could go back to that personable feeling? Because you all were talking about trying to make it more presentable to the world. You need to be family-owned or more likable by the world. To say, hey, come to Barrier Island and stay here because our sales are down, we don't have as many people. But those little personal touches, like, follow me, I'll take you to your unit for the first time. Not every person that comes through, but the first time come. Or the ones that are there because they RCI'd out and they have no clue how to get around.
Well, again, I think that would be a good suggestion. The only problem that we have with that is that we have resource issues. So we're not really able to just give that level of a personal touch. But, I can let Walter address it further. However, I can tell you from experience here that if people are having problems and they need to get their luggage taken up to the room or something of that, if there's staffing available, they will do it and they will help you. But just on a regular basis, if someone is lost, they could come back around and ask to get some assistance.
Yes.
Why couldn't we just provide a map of the facility?
We have the map. We have a map. We have a map that's in the welcome packet. It's actually on the envelope.
Yes,
So,
and
I
I
mean,
understand, but there are just some people out there that you can't fix.
Yeah, so when you
I
check
know.
in, you as owners, you still get a map. It's actually on your packet. There's a big map on your packet that's printed on. You as owners that, like you said, been coming since the 90s, you don't need our map. Our first-time renters, renters showing up, RCIs, now that map, my staff does go in and they highlight exactly where you're going. You are
Okay.
here, you're going here, and they highlight you so that you can get where you guys, you don't need it. You probably don't even notice the map because there's no need for it. But our RCI guests and our renters, we do. That's a normal process. And then, as Denise said, we do, as owners, a whole group, we do have owners that are aging, and they'll go in and assist getting you in the unit, helping you with luggage, getting you out of the unit when it's checkout time. But no, we don't personally escort people to their units, unfortunately. We just don't have the staff to do it.
Yeah, well, that's why I said it was in the early 90s when you did that. But yeah, but sometimes it was just that personal touch that you give them that they want to come back, because there were a few of them that I used to talk to wouldn't come back. And I'm like, it's really a great place, but and the upgrades are doing wonderful for it because they are doing it. Although 700 building really is has its issues, but I do appreciate all you do. And I do still plan to keep coming back because I have a child that keeps coming too. So, you know, it's passed down from parent to child to now hopefully my child. So, but that's it.
Well, thank you very much.
I have 2 more questions, if I may.
Oh, Pam?
I have a question that was texted to Debbie that she's making me get up here and read. From Eric Miller. Have we considered the pros cons of a fire sale for BIS-owned units? Getting a few $100s each or even $1 each would allow for recurring income from maintenance fees versus sitting unowned or unrented.
Well, I can't say we've considered a fire sale, but Joe Takis has published units for sale repeatedly. I believe they're on the website. They've been inserts in your welcome packet when you come in. He's run promotions. A couple of years ago, he ran an auction of units. So there are ways to buy if someone wants to buy here. In terms of a fire sale, if you're thinking of let's sell it for $1 to an owner, well, we'll sell a week for $1 and have that owner pay $995. We'll be happy to take that deal and hope that that owner continues to pay that maintenance fee every January 1st. They can do that right now. We'll give them that unit if they want that, if they'll give us the $995. So at a market price, we're willing to sell anything. And if someone is interested in our units, I would urge you can contact me. If you can contact Joe if he has the listing. If you're interested in buying something, we can find out what is available. And I'm not a licensed realtor. I can't get ahead of North Carolina law on this, so I can't negotiate with you or anything such as that, but I can get it into the right hands. So if anyone is interested, we'd be happy to hear from you.
To follow up a little bit, you piqued something in my mind. You have the best staff here in terms of the folks that help you on a day-to-day basis. They are tremendous in terms of carrying your stuff up, doing little things for you, and I think we all appreciate that, but we want you to know that we do appreciate that. On the move-in thing, nobody in this room looks extremely young. Just in the summer weeks, just in case you don't know, there's an actual move-in service. If in the summer weeks when we're rocking and rolling here, our maintenance staff and housekeeping and everybody, our housekeepers helped move us last summer because we were changing units. They were just delightful people. But if you ever need, there is an actual move-in service, and it's like
packing list.
Say what?
Pack list.
Don't talk about my packing list. But there is a service that will move you in for $100, $150, move you in, move you out. And if you happen to be on a third-floor condo and bring maybe a little too much stuff to the beach, it's very helpful. So enough of that. Question for maybe Justin. As Capital is now sort of really getting into the swing of managing our resort and moving along, are we going to be marketing things out of here, or is that on hold until we talk about repurposing things, or how does that work?
No, you're talking like sales and marketing out of here?
Yeah.
No, you still have sales and marketing agreements with Joe.
Okay.
Joe Tack is MVP, so Capital is not doing
Okay.
marketing out of here.
Any plans to start that in the future? No? Okay. Thank you.
I got one real brief question. I don't have a problem talking. Everybody can hear me.
Well,
Real
could you
quickly,
come up 'cause
Walter
you're on the
said we got
video.
the area that's, the YMCA, that's how they view it, and then we got the association, the new bylaws. Emotional support animals, what's our policy on that? I was walking by the pool and almost got my leg taken off by the emotionally supportive Chihuahua. And now I have to get an emotionally support animal just for that. So I mean, some of these, when I ask the staff, I said, well, I have an emotional support cow. How do I bring it in? You know? I mean, what do we do? Because I've seen a lot of dogs and stuff around here, and it looked kind of questionable.
3 years ago, we had an iguana.
So Capital spent a lot of money. That's a huge issue in hospitality, not timeshare, hotel, just hospitality in general. Obviously airplanes, everywhere you travel. Capital spends a lot of money with that issue. And so they provide, and you can, and the staff will show it to you. They provide to us a list of what we can ask, because it's protected, and there's very little that we can ask and we can pry into.
Right.
You'd love to say, hey, let me see your certificate showing that that's an emotion. You can't do that. You can, and I'm trying to remember, the question one is, what task does that animal or whatever it is, what service does that dog or animal provide for you? We're allowed to ask that question. And if it's, yeah, there's certain, depending on the answers, whether we were allowed to accept it or not. But I can tell you that everything's in their favor. Very little is in our favor as the hospitality or the accommodations.
And you know what I'm thinking, as far as the new.
It happens all the time. Yeah, I mean, just to your point, you'll see a Chihuahua with a service animal vest on it, and it's not. And it is a battle that.
Or your dog going back to the unit and jumping on the couch and, you know.
And the unfortunate part is, there are people that, many people that have to have those, right? And then, but there's, so, you know, it's just like everything, that there's people that take advantage of it, and it's making it have a bad name for people that actually do need it. But we are very limited in how much we can push the envelope when it comes to service animals.
I just wonder if there's a grandfathered service animal clause, or we gotta go by the 23 duck standards now, and, you know.
Yeah, it's all ADA, and, they own theirs right out, so they can have, I mean, that's just like their home, so they can have a pet just like you could have one home. Yeah.
Where we're going with that.
But if you're ever at the resort and have a question, the front desk has it. It's laminated, and it's really if the owner or guest answers this way, then an arrow goes down, and this is what you say next, because it's very protected. So they have very strict guidelines on what they're allowed to ask and pry against.
And we have
Now, if there's any damage to the unit.
They're still liable.
Then, because we take their credit card.
Yep.
And
So we can't.
Maintenance goes, or housekeeping goes into cleanup.
Yeah, if they go in and dogs chewed up a baseboard, or had restroom on the carpet or whatever it may be, they are liable. We can't inconvenience them, charge them, or penalize them in any other way that we could any other owner, unless they cause damage. Just like if you cause damage, no difference. But you can't go in and say, hey, because we've circled this wagon is, you've got a pet, now we're charging you a pet fee. We can't do that. We can't charge them a pet fee. ADA protects them from being charged or inconvenienced any other way than you are. And really, that's for people that truly need it, but there's people that take advantage of it.
We have a person that's been waiting very patiently in the back there with a question.
Are we ready?
It's your time.
Ernie Walton, 302-710, sorry, too close. This is just a question that may have been in the newsletter, but with our new rec center opening up in January, it makes us more of a year-round resort, I would think. So that would make the winter months, that some of the inventory may be more desirable. But I'm wondering, and we may already have it, I'm just asking, do we have a program for owners who may want to come in the wintertime, like this, a week to celebrate an anniversary or something like that, or something else, where we could get a discount week, something that would at least add to the funds and maybe not cost as much as owning a unit or having to pay $9.95, but like $3.99 or $4.99 and get a week in the wintertime to celebrate an occasion. Do we have a program like that? And if we don't, could we institute one?
No, sir, we don't, but that's a good idea.
That's a great
idea.
It is a great idea, and
That's a good idea.
I'll circle back with Justin and see. I mean, right now, if you call, you're going to get the same rate that anybody else would, but I think that is a great idea.
For owners, I'm talking about for owners who are already here, get a discount because you are an owner and paid up and everything. And there's lots of things to do here other than just lay on the beach, and especially with the new rec center opening up. And of course, there's fishing and different sights to see. So I would like you guys to maybe take a look at that.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for your
Mike, can help us
suggestion.
paint?
Appreciate it. You have a question?
That brings up something else. We have a timeshare in Maine that has a gym building, which we have access to and a pool, which we have access as a timeshare in addition to the hotel complex, which is separate. They also allow people from the town to come in and use the exercise facilities and the pool. Is that something that we might be open to?
So I've talked to Joe quite a bit. Yeah, the resort offers day use. You know,
Okay.
you guys, I think back in the day, had these little cards. You come
Right.
and go to the beach anytime you wanted to.
Right.
Sorry? Owners only, right. But if you're local and you live in Southern Shores, it's cheaper to own a week at Duck and use it as a beach club than it is to go to the YMCA, have a year membership to the YMCA.
Okay.
You know, you could, in the summer, go to the beach, go to the pool, use Snack Shack. In the winter, you got an indoor pool and a gym.
Right.
So we've talked a little bit about that with Joe. Obviously, we don't want to bombard it. But,
Yeah.
and then the bonus is you get a week out of it to use whenever you want to, or not use whatever you want to
Right,
do. But
right.
when we talked about the beach access, there was a point that we were talking about having an opportunity to put a drivable beach access on the property. We'd be the only one in the town of Duck that has that. Then it made sense to say, well, now that people in town, they could buy a week and they could go in the off season, they could go on the beach and drive and fish and do whatever they want to do.
Right.
And that would be a membership way to get you in there.
Right.
And then the bonus is you get a week if you want to use it or not.
Well, so maybe
we've
that's.
toyed around. We have toyed around
Oh,
with
good, good.
not an individual membership, but basically buy a week, get day use.
Okay, good, thanks.
Because if they get owned, then who knows what they would do, they don't really have that stake.
Right.
Like you said, a membership, they could have a membership and send down their 6 kids with their friends all down
Right.
to our rec center and tear it all apart, and they have, yeah.
Hi there. Kylie Ferguson. We own 102 and 512. Question about the emotional support animals. Are those units cleaned any differently after animals have been in them and they've possibly been on the bedding and the furniture?
Carpet or in the carpeted units, housekeeping does a dander clean. They don't do them in our renovated units because of the hardwood, or that's not hardwood, but LVT. I mean, it's still mop, but they don't do a dander clean in the carpet.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, looks like we're finished with the questions. Thank you guys very much again for all of your support. We appreciate it, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
The ones that were
Oh.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Margie, who seconds it?
Oh, yeah, second.
All in favor? Aye.